Members, staff, members of the gallery, press, welcome all of you to the council meeting for Tuesday the 26th of June. And in opening the meeting, I'd like to acknowledge the land we meet on today is the traditional lands for the Kaurna people in relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. I'd like to read you the council pledge. We seek wisdom and understanding as we face the duties of our united task, praying for the peace and prosperity of our city. Please be seated. We have a couple of people running late. We will carry on because we have quorum. Item 1.3 is a declaration by members of a conflict of interest. I will just declare an interest in item 13.2 regarding credit card use because it specifically refers to the Mayor having a credit card. And other than that, I have no interest in the matter, but I'll vacate the chair for that item. Deputy Mayor will take over. Are there any other conflicts of interest people wish to declare? No, that being the case, we'll move on to on leave. We have nil. Apologies, we have Councillor Tallis Evans and Councillor Nat Lowe will join us at around about 7:30. Councillor Monica Lee is on her way. She'll be here in about 5 or 10 minutes, I suspect. Confirmation of minutes from the ordinary meeting of council held on Tuesday the 22nd of May. So maybe you confirm that as a true and accurate record. Deputy Mayor, wish to speak to it?
No, thank you.
And Councillor Harris wish to speak to it?
No, thank you.
Any further debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against is carried. Unanimous. Mayor's report is there for you on page 1 to 2. Any questions? No, if that's the case, someone happy to move. There'll be no, proceed to noted. Councillor Backer, wish to speak to it. The seconder. Councillor Harris, wish to speak to it.
No.
Any further debate? That being the case, all those in favour? Against is carried unanimously. Item 6, elected member reports and briefings. Are there any elected member reports or briefings? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, I, along with the Mayor, attended the consultation with the Devonport terrace residents and even though so a few of the residents were unable to attend, but I think there was some quite good discussion on a range of topics, so that's I think going to progress. Along.
Any further elected member briefings? No, that being the case?
Yeah, I will, because I'm not sure. I did attend on your behalf the Aboriginal Soldiers Memorial on the Torrens Parade Ground, and it was great now after a couple of years to see, since we've had it there, that the numbers are increased and people are showing up. And a really remarkable thing I think that's happening is many of us, most of me always thought Aboriginal people didn't fight in many of our wars because they didn't have many choices. They either fought pretending they were white because they had a big problem that they were actually Aboriginal, particularly the Boer War, where we took away 50 trackers to help the Crown. It was in those days, the Crown, even though we were Australians, and the sheer fact that they were black, we left them in Africa. We wouldn't bring them home because we had a good white Australia policy. But slowly, as Aboriginal people fought in wars for our country, our system, they either had to pretend they were white or half white or Aboriginal, they get no benefits. So now some of those names are appearing on the memorials, which is great. Very unfortunate that a lot of people were upset because people desecrated the memorial about 2 weeks beforehand and put some very, I won't say what I think, but some rotten sort of things on. So I was very, very happy to represent the council there.
Thank you for doing that. Yeah, it's a good memorial. Elected members may remember we contributed some funds towards that memorial some time ago, so part of it is ours, and happily so. Any further elected member reports and briefings? Deputy Mayor.
I should just mention that early last week I attended the ALGA National Assembly on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday last week as your voting delegate. There was some 90 odd motions that were debated, discussed, amended, and then voted. But really interesting, if you haven't had a chance, go to the website and have a look at the motions that were on notice. There's interest to us in a lot of those. And some really interesting people who spoke at the conference, in particular led with the opposition, Bill Shorten, who talked about constitutional recognition for local government, which was fantastic. The Prime Minister spoke at the dinner, and my favourite, Bernard Salt, who spoke a lot about demographics and the changing nature of Australia, which I thought was really interesting. His takeaway message for me was that Australia has become the most multicultural society in the world. We're pliable, bendable, adaptable and flexible, and I thought that was actually really good, particularly given that we are such a multicultural community here in Prospect. He also came up with new acronyms for the newest people in our society, including the KIPPers, which are Kids in Parents' Pockets Eroding Retirement Savings, NETTLES, Not Enough Time to Enjoy Life, and Pumpkins, which is the professional urban middle class in our suburbs. And if you want to know what Lombards are, talk to me after.
Yes, very good, great presentation. Okay, thank you. No more? Right. Petitions, item 7.1, we have one petition from the residents of Azalea Street Public Realm Upgrade, item 14.2 of the Council meeting on the 24th of April 2018. Deal with this, but the petition is on page 3 and the recommendations on page 3. Someone move that we see the petition. Councillor Barnett, do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, I think it's regardless of whatever the topic is, I think it's always really great that we do get items such as petitions from our residents, and that's what part of role of what we're here for, to listen and to take part in those sorts of discussions. And I think usually if people have gone to the trouble of writing a petition, it really does mean something to them. So it pays us to listen and have a look at it.
Thank you. We should second that. Councillor Harris, wish to speak to it?
Just very basic to support the previous speaker, because I find very often that we do something or something happens, then you get someone in the shopping centre or whatever, as their 2 blocks work, and you say, well, did you see someone, speak to someone? The answer was no. So you're reveling again of the topic. It's good to see people put their hand up, put their name and raise their concerns and hopefully find their answer.
Thank you. Now that's on the floor, just briefly from the Chair, you'll notice that the head petitioner, or one of them, is Deputy, so we'll hear from the Deputy in a moment. And secondly, the CEO has informed me that there will be a report on this matter next council meeting, answering as many of the questions that we can. There are some inconsistencies. We're investigating ourselves. Not sure how we'll go investigating other government bodies. That's part of the problem, but we'll do our CEO doing their best to get to the bottom of it. So just so you're aware that those things are in train, both the Deputy and the report coming to us next month. Any further debate? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Would agree with the move and the seconder. Just one question on page 4, last paragraph. It says council administration is not undertaking any further work due to community angst and waiting for the direction from council. The question was going to be what's next steps. I've heard part of those next steps, which is a report to council. But are we going to have an opportunity in a workshop environment to discuss what we think, or are you going to come up with some solutions, come to council and debate on the floor?
CEO.
Thank you very much for the question. My intention was to bring a report back to council next month outlining a response certainly to the petition and the queries within that petition. I will be speaking with the Director of Infrastructure and Environment in relation to addressing how we engage with council and the community in regard to the whole issue around whether the footpath is redesigned or not, and so take that bit on notice and let you know in terms of establishing an opportunity to do that.
Thank you, Trevor. Any further speakers? That being the case, that concludes the debate, unless Councillor Barnett, you wish to sum up?
No.
Everybody does conclude it. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
along.
Now I move to the deputations at item 8.1, noting just in advance that at item 8.2, Thomas Pearce has apologised. He will not be presenting to us tonight, so we have the one deputation. If I can call forward Ms Fusdale, if you're able to take one of these empty seats over here, might be good. And for the record, could you state your name and address?
To stand. Wendy Dawn Fusdale, 5 Azalea Street, Prospect.
5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the Mayor, CEO, staff and elected members for hearing us out. As I've written it down so that I don't get it wrong. As Azalea Street residents, we feel that we are under siege as we've endured parking issues, noise from patrons, increased traffic, booning, antisocial behaviour, noise from the cinema complex, extraction flue, and now this proposal to create an outdoor dining area at the top of Azalea Street. The residents who were approached to sign the petition that was mentioned previously, whether they were for or against the proposal, were all horrified that there was no resident consultation. So that was an issue that everyone had with that. We've asked ourselves, how was this proposal ever considered? Well, why was it proposed? Why was it ever considered? We're disappointed in the elected members for unanimously approving this proposal without consideration of the residents, even though they were previously made aware of issues relating to this restaurant. Correspondence received from the Mayor and various council officers in response to our written concerns included blinkered justification and inconsistent reasoning. We are the ones who observe and live with the direct effect of these issues, yet we have been contradicted and our concerns trivialised by the Mayor and council officers as though they are in a better position to know what our living experiences are. We ask you this: would you like a busy and noisy outdoor restaurant in close proximity to your house? Who benefits from this proposal? The aim of the project, as stated in the application and the report to council, is purely commercial and solely to the advantage of the business owner. The report concluded, Mes Mazzy is a popular busy restaurant frequented by many patrons, and business operators regularly turning customers away due to the lack of seating for outdoor dining. Widening of the footpath will provide the opportunity to meet customer demand for increased outdoor dining and supports Council's strategic target for increased footfall on Prospect Road. From the outset, there has been huge confusion over the intended capacity of this proposed outdoor dining area. 12 or 35, which is it? Council issued an outdoor dining permit for 12 seats in October 2015. That's only 12. The liquor licensing extension trading area application was lodged with the liquor licensing branch the next month for 35 outdoor seats. The branch has told us that outdoor dining permit must accompany the application and they must not differ. They have to be the same amount. The licence would be rendered invalid if there's a discrepancy between the two, and it therefore stands to reason that the current liquor licensing is actually invalid. The report to council states that the permit allows for a maximum of 35 patrons to be seated in an outdoor dining area. By using the term permit in the report and not the word licence, it infers that council's outdoor dining permit is for 35 seats, not 12. So that was misleading in that report, we think. Simon Bradley, in his letter of 31st of May 2018, confirms the existence of the above-mentioned 12 seats permit, but twice states in that letter that there is no current intent to increase the number of seats being provided on the footpath. This is confusing and contradicts the report. How does this project achieve the aims of the application to increase patrons without an increase in capacity? It is evident that the underlying agenda is to increase the outdoor seating. If this isn't the case, what's the point of the application? What's the point of the project? Why put in all of those resources and do the work? Why construct the area in the first place and then consider a permit application for additional seating afterwards? This is chicken before the egg scenario. If the upgrade and resulting increase of capacity goes ahead, there's not been a consideration of any of the factors that have already been identified: noise, parking, congestion, or the complaints from the Rose Street residents regarding outdoor dining, and yet the houses in Azalea Street are in fact closer to the proposed outdoor dining area. Across Adelaide, where outdoor dining is located in residential streets, only Childers and Tint Street, North Adelaide, are close to residential housing. However, they are situated on a street level. This proposal is located on a hill, extends 21 metres down Azalea Street on an elevated surface. Studies into the trajectory of outdoor dining noise from an elevated position with a building corridor have shown that the noise carries further, is louder, for a greater distance as compared to a flat, open environment. We are concerned with the traffic and safety impacts of narrowing the top of Azalea Street despite assurance from council officers to the contrary, including using irrelevant scenarios and comparisons with other streets. The quoted amount for this project does not include costs of the resources from within council required to coordinate, manage and oversee it. These costs would be borne 100% by council, therefore the ratepayer. Whilst we... I've got one paragraph, not a panic, never panic. Whilst we applaud council's drive for business and economic development of the Prospect High Street, we believe it's being undertaken without due consideration of the immediate long-term impacts. Existing residents appear to be collateral damage in this drive.
Just for a second. Thank you for that. Rattled that one off pretty well. Welcome Councillor Lee to the meeting. Do any of the members have any questions of the Deputy? Councillor Barney.
Yes, I always feel that it falls a bit flat if you've put a lot of time, energy and effort into it. Nobody asks a question of the deputy. Anyway, I'm only allowed to ask a question. So is there any part of the proposal that you think you and your residents would perhaps be in favour of? Like if it's just for example seating on Prospect Road and not anywhere else?
There is already the 12 outdoor dining seats. The permit exists already, and according to liquor licensing, we can't see the area for the 35, this weird amount of 35, where that would possibly be. But there are already seats on Prospect Road and there's already seats on Azalea Street. And I understand it's very difficult for the restaurant to make people comfortable on a street that slopes. However, the widening of the footpath and the elevation of it to only allow for, say, these 12 people, if we're not increasing the capacity, or you're not increasing the capacity, it's a lot of infrastructure and resources and work and maybe impact on narrowing a street to allow the restaurant to gain 24 patrons a night, not extra patrons because they already seat people outside. It's 24 patrons because it's 2 seatings that they will allow. So on a peak time, that's 24 people a night. Now, seems to be a lot of resources to me, and I know that will carry on and they may reap the benefits eventually. But to us, the people of Azalea Street, it appears that the intent is to make it bigger, then make it bigger, make the capacity larger. Why wouldn't you? If that's the case, if you're going to put all of that energy and effort into the infrastructure, then that to me is the purpose. But to us, that's what we think.
Thank you. Any further questions of the Deputy? Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, just got a couple. Thank you very much. First question is, I can't recall, were you here the night we debated this particular motion?
No.
So I would encourage you, if it's still available, to have a look at it on YouTube, because there was quite a, it's not, so maybe, I don't know whether we can make it available or whether that ship is sailed, but it might be useful just to hear the debate. There was some debate on it. It wasn't just a unanimous yep, well, for it. There was lots of debate on it. So just that's a question.
Kind of. You're moving to a question.
Well, I'm moving to a question. In the actual petition, you've got here the indicative costing of this proposal. I'm just interested in your interest in the costing of it. Can you just link that to the other bits you've spoken about?
Yes, and I am aware, and I have been told from the Prospect Residents Association about the debate on the night, and I know that's not really a question, but and whilst there was, there was debate about whether you should consult, no matter what, it was unanimously agreed to. So that's you can't deny that point.
No.
And the costing originally, and I understand Council has, with its procurement policy, received 3 quotations for it, and that is the cost. But interestingly, I'm surprised at that. I work across local government. I've worked with local government for 30 years and most of my clients are local government. I worked for this council for many years and I've talked to infrastructure managers about this proposal and the costing, and they've all looked at me shocked at the 36,000 for a 6-week infrastructure project that actually redesigns that F section of the footpath. They all laugh. So, but you must have a really good quote to get it for 36,000. But my view, or our view, sorry, I'm saying mine because I'm standing here, our view is that it doesn't take into consideration the cost to council of managing this project as well, which I know can be very significant. And I would have thought the pavers themselves would be about 36,000 without the rest of it. I did some paving in my house and it was 26,000. So that was the pavers and just laying the sand so that's why it seems very odd to me, the costing. And so can't question that if the quotes are there, and I'm sure the figures will come out. But if there is a shortfall in the project, who does wear that?
Any further, Deputy Mayor? Any further questions to the Deputy? No, thank you. I think the presentation is really clear. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for hearing us.
Pleasure, and you've heard me speak from the Chair that there will be a report coming to us next month where hopefully a lot more clarity is provided. Just in conclusion, as you make your way back to the gallery, if you wish to stay and listen to the rest of the meeting, that's you'd be more than welcome. We understand you can make your way home and sit by a fire. We understand that entirely. So we won't be discussing this particular matter anymore tonight.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for your interest and look forward to catching up with you presumably next meeting. And we'll now move on to the next item, item 9.1, motions on notice. Deputy Mayor Bruce, your motion.
Thank you. So I haven't complied with the provisions. I've moved that council staff undertake a representative survey of residents and businesses in the City of Prospect to seek their views on the introduction of a consistent speed limit of 40 km per hour within the council boundaries, excluding Main North Road, Prospect Road, Regency Road, Churchill Road, Hampstead Road and Broadway Avenue, to help inform a future council decision on speed limits across those streets. So, look, this is a fairly straightforward motion, the same that we've been talking about for some time. And I think not just over the last couple of months, but pretty much over the last 3 or 4 years, we've been talking about speed, and 40 kilometres an hour comes up and down, and we talk about and we do things and we don't do things. I guess for me, I don't think we've quite landed the intent of my last motion, which was to look at some innovative ways of managing traffic in our streets. And so what I thought would be really useful is for us to have a conversation with the community about this particular issue. So a number of people have spoken to me about it, mostly in favour, 1 or 2 not in favour. But I think it would be, as I said, useful for us to have that conversation, not as an official consultation process that would necessarily lead to us implementing it, but as a guide or a gauge of community sentiment on this particular issue. I know we've got a really good process we use for our business planning consultation, where we collect people and we have conversations with them, and that may be a process that we could use in this case. But really want to get a sense of what people are thinking about the speed limit in the council boundaries, excluding those roads. I understand that there's no material cost for doing that, and the CEO can perhaps confirm that, but I understand that there is material cost in doing a consultation and can be done as pretty much as BAU. So we'll just do it as part of our normal everyday business. It does, of course, exclude our main roads, which are at 60 kilometres an hour. There's no intent to change that, and I can't imagine a future council decision would seek to change that, but it is looking at those roads where we have different speed limits at the moment. We have 3 or 4 different speed limits across those roads within the council boundaries. I think it's a fairly straightforward motion. It will give us some information as to what we do next and help inform our future decision making, and I commend it to you.
Thank you. Over a second. Councillor Harris, would you speak to it?
Just to add very briefly a couple of things. Being lucky enough, I suppose, to sit here through the previous discussion we had where we did implement a 40 kilometre. It was interesting that we spoke to people all over the area and their opinion, and although only a section happened, that was the way the law read in that day, so we had to do a bit at a time. This would be, to me, very good because a lot of the people, most probably the majority, that do ever speak about or any sort of speed things, think of 40s there. the couple of arguments against, very good arguments like, well, we always do 40 down our street, so don't make it 40, is all really good. I don't know whether that's for or against it, but it can fit in that. But it is that time and try and make a area or not, make an area or one speed limit, and to make it a safe one, because I personally agree with the 40 kilometres an hour. So I'd be happy to see some sort of survey to see what other people do in our city.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Stanton and then Councillor Barnett.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with this motion. I think the conversation needs to be started sooner rather than later. 40 kilometres an hour seems to be a very natural fit for our city. The streets are narrow, the cars are getting wider, and I think 40 kilometres is in some of our streets is more than adequate. It also leaves the path open for us to have other conversations about some of the less savoury traffic calming methods that we've got, which are unpopular to a lot of residents. And by dropping the speed limit down to 40 kilometres, we can open the conversation to see what we can do about some of those. I think it's a fantastic initiative, and I hope the community supports it and we can get it up.
Thank you. Councillor Barnett.
Yes, part of me thinks we're putting out, if we're going, this gets up, we do a representative survey of residents, which means most probably only to be statistically valid about 300 odd across the whole city. But I still haven't got a handle yet where we're on with what Mayor Group mentioned. So I've been in favour of for quite some years is looking at traffic management across the whole city, and not as we just do it in the little blocks of precincts, which I now get like residents in Fitzroy saying, well, when are we getting ours coming back? It takes so long and things change. But so I just would like to, through one of the staff or director or CEO, could give an idea about, we did put up saying that we wanted some innovation about managing traffic in our city. And before I vote on this, I'd just like to get a handle on where we are with that. Is this a possibility to be able to put a few more innovative questions in along with the 40 Ks? What?
Thank you. Is that question correct?
Through the chair, council administration intended bringing up the report back in August regarding a previous motion from the Deputy Mayor regarding innovative ways to whether we remove or add further traffic calming devices. So they'll be coming back in August. The question about whether we should include some of those questions as part of the survey. At this stage, the resolution is quite clear. We're referring to 40 kilometres an hour, but that might be something that follows on from that process.
Director, the question of innovation, not just things coming and going, but the question was, are we looking at things that are innovative?
Through the chair, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Anything further, Councillor Barnett?
All right, so I suppose I've sort of got that across there. So it doesn't say there's any time frame on this. So I assume that if I did vote for it, that it could perhaps be tied in somewhere with the future innovative whatever. Oh.
Perhaps ask a question, Councillor Barnett, of the Director as to how long it might take. Good question, Councillor. Director.
Through the chair, if we're doing a representative survey, you quoted approximately right around 300 residents. We believe that time frame would suit the report coming back in August. So it's something we could incorporate.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Barnett, anything further?
All right. No, I'm all right.
Thank you. Councillor DeBack.
I was moving amendment.
The amendment is?
So there's a second part first, would be an and I'd ask permission of the Councillor Greech. So council staff liaise with the LGA and DIPTI for a metro-wide approach in a metro area. And then the third, liaise with the LGA to speed limits.
As a part 2?
And then the third would be that the report comes back, or the consultation be done by August. Do you remember the timeline? The report to come back to council by the August council meeting. So can I speak to that amendment and then?
The new issue is seek interest of the mover and seconder in either of those on your behalf. If you speak to it, it kind of makes it an amendment.
So can I speak to it now or not? Or have to ask permission?
It might be quicker to ask permission first, and then you may not need to speak to it. But if you really want to speak, then fire away.
It's just briefly. Like I think if traffic congestion and speeds is an issue that all inner metro councils face, and I think it's certainly from a driver, they don't, acknowledge the fact they're going from Walkerville to Prospect, whatever. And I think it would be common sense through the LGA and the DIPTI to have a approach across the whole of Adelaide within the inner metro area to improve safety and also reduce bureaucracy and different laws for different councils. Inner metro, that was the inner, sorry.
If you want to amend
inner metro approach. Yeah, thanks.
Mover, are you happy to incorporate?
Are you taking these in parts or is it as a whole?
I'll take it in parts to the question. Are you happy to incorporate part 2? Would you be happy to incorporate part 3?
Yes.
Okay. Seconder, unusual. I'll just indulge me for a second. Would you be happy to incorporate part 3?
Yes.
Okay. I'll seek leave of me to incorporate part 3. All those in favour of incorporating part 3?
Sorry, a
Yes.
question.
Yes. Incorporated.
No, I didn't vote. I'm trying to ask a question because which report's going to be presented? Is it the one about the council staff liaising or is it about the survey?
There is no survey. Sorry, there is only a survey proposed in the motion.
All right.
Is now, part 3 is now incorporated as part 2. So, Councillor De Backer, you have now the option of moving what was part 2 as an amendment. Do you still wish to proceed with that? Well, you've got probably another couple of minutes left of your time. That's what you have to speak to. Because you've already used up that 3 minutes.
Sorry, I'm just a bit confused about the process here. But I just think, again, individual councils looking at traffic control, that, it's great, and we have to do that traffic management surveys as we have done in the past, with whatever it's going to be. However, I just think across the whole of the inner metro area that everyone's facing similar issues, and it just seems silly coming from somewhere like Renown Park across the road and then it's 40 k's. So I think we at least need to be talking to our neighbours, if not collaboratively with the other inner metro areas.
Thank you. We'll just get the amendment up so it's nice and clear.
Yeah.
Yes, so the amendment did add part 3 for and in the metro approach to speed limits. Okay, do I have a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Barnett.
Yeah.
Wish to speak to it?
I just think it, along with all what's been...
Sorry, can you second if you've already spoken?
I haven't spoken, I'd asked a question.
Yeah, she asked a question.
Yeah, I think it just seems perhaps a bit of common sense that it's all about traffic and traffic management and about things that we'd, like to get some traction on, and get things sort of changed and that sort of thing. So that's why I'm happy to second this.
Okay, thank you. Any further speakers to the amendment? Welcome, Councillor Larwood. To the amendment.
Can I speak to the amendment?
Yes.
Yes. Look, I think it's a fantastic amendment. I just don't think it's for this particular motion, if that makes sense. I think it's something that's worthy of an LGA motion. That's in the state AGM or the state meeting. I just don't want our processes to get confused or wound up with in a metro process. And I think that we'd need to actually talk to other councils before we necessarily went to DIPT or LGA. So that's my reservation. I won't support it, but I will support it if it comes up in another form, either as a question at the end of the evening or as a motion for the LGA.
Thank you. Any other speakers to the amendment? No, that concludes the debate. There's no summing up of the amendment. I'll take the vote. All those in favour of the amendment? All those against the amendment? The amendment is lost. Sorry, can I just take that vote again? All those in favour of the amendment? All those against the amendment? Councillor Larwood, behind you under the Act, you need to vote. So you're going to take the vote again. You need to vote yes or no. And take the vote again. Very rarely take a vote a third time. All those in favour of the amendment? All those against the amendment? It is lost. Thank you. All right, so we go back to the motion as revised. With your indulgence, we wish to speak to the original motion as revised. Councillor Deputy Mayor, group wish to sum up.
What we've moved. Look, I just want to make the point that this isn't the consultation process. This is not saying that we're going to do it. It's purely a mechanism for us to come and have a conversation with the community. Just want to explain the term representative. That might not necessarily be a numerical representative, but I guess it's about trying to get a spread of people across our council area, a spread of demographics, rather than necessarily numerical. I'll leave that to staff in their wisdom. But really keen just to understand from the community what their thoughts are on it.
Thank you. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Okay, thank you. Questions with notice. There are nil listed. Questions without notice, are there any? Councillor Harris.
I just have a question. I've got the agenda and everything in front of me. And my question comes from basically the second paragraph down. I just wondered if the Mayor is aware that it says there, members of the public are advised that meetings of council are video recorded, and the recording of the open session of the meeting will be made available on Council's website for a period of 2 months. So if that was February, it would be there for the month of April and May, as an example. And if you go to our website, I only see the last one, January the 23rd. So there's already February, March, April and May that aren't on the website. I wonder if that's a typing error, or
cut to your question.
Is how come we say that it's there and it's not there?
Right, thank you. CEO, Director, somebody?
Okay, thank you. Through the Chair, I was unaware of it not being available on those sites. I have checked some people in information management. Apparently there is an issue with some of the Wi-Fi in the building. So we'll have a short investigation into it and find out how we can get those back on the system. It may be that since we've had this new setup that it simply hasn't been recording properly. But we'll bring that back to the next council.
Well, since the memo.
Memo.
Okay, Director.
Thank you.
Anything further, Councillor Harris? Any more questions without notice? I think Councillor Backer.
Look, this is just on behalf of a resident regarding St Helens Park. Comment before question. Pleased to see the poles are removed. Looking very neat, tidy. I just had a question regarding the ongoing maintenance of our heritage coach house. There have been concerns raised and what's been done about that. I've got another question.
So you have a specific question?
Yeah, is there a management plan in place for the heritage coach house?
Director.
Through the chair, there isn't a management plan per se for the coach house. It's treated like any other building at this stage. We're reviewing our asset management plans for buildings over the next few months, for which that will be incorporated as part of that. Regarding the coach house, the gutters are being cleaned next Wednesday. They're quite full of leaves at the moment. In the next 2 weeks, the locks will be changed, and we're looking at the water rot that's in along the doors as well of the coach house.
Thank you.
Just another question from a resident in regards to the artwork proposed for the RSL North Adelaide Football Club courtyard. There was a sum of money in order of about $10,000 for a significant artwork in that space. Now, I'm a member of the Public Art Committee, but at no time was I made aware that the land that's being placed on is actually co-leased, perhaps, with the RSL, and I'm just wondering if that's going to be put on halt for the time being. So that would be to infrastructure or to...
Oh, leave that to me.
Okay.
I'll make it a bit easy for you. CEO, I presume that's Director of all things art.
Absolutely. Which I will just pass over to Mr. Funny.
Thanks for that, and through the chair. Look, it's a matter that we're looking a bit deeper into. There's been some conversation from North Adelaide Football Club and RSL on the journey, but the RSL have got some ideas about what they would like to do in that space, but they're worried the artwork may jeopardise those future plans. We're happy to assure them that it won't, but we want to have a more detailed conversation and include this assets department as the leasehold, just to make sure that all parties are on the same page.
For the sake of clarity, the football club has a licence to use the oval space. But does either the RSL or the football club have any tie over the land outside their buildings? Do you know, or does the other Director of Infrastructure and Leasing know?
Through the chair, we're referring to that triangle piece of land between the back of the grandstand and the RSL club.
Yeah.
We are investigating that just to make sure. So I don't want to give an answer at this stage. Over the next couple of days, I'll provide a direct answer on that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor, anything further?
To be assured that there's nothing going ahead until that matter is resolved.
Director.
Through the chair, certainly, it's on hold pending discussions and investigation.
Thank you. Any further questions without notice? Councillor Harris.
Yeah, sorry I didn't raise it before, but listening to my co-councillor I did. Talking about murals now, I know who I can direct it to, thanks the chair. Magnificent Toyota building just finished on Main North Road, and I'm assuming they're knocking down the bit out the front. My question is, when and where will the mural of the trains go back up? It was removed to do the work on Toyota.
I think there's another question with that, but that might come on the answer. Thank you, Director.
Through the chair, I'll have to check the specifics of that, whether it was part of the development approval to remove that wall and whether there was any agreement to reinstate. I'm not sure. Off the top of my head,
My understanding, Director, is that wall belonged to them. It wasn't our wall.
through the chair, that sounds right, which is why we weren't standing in the way of removing the art at the time, which has been documented and recorded in our local history collection.
Thank you. So I think, Councillor, the question you have is if it's going to be replaced. My understanding is no, they have chosen not to put a wall back there.
Well, I'll just continue that question because I thought I was there when we were told it was being. If that's the case, my question goes, where in the city will that go back up?
My understanding, Councillor, is it's been demolished. The murals go on other people's walls to stop graffiti artists going on them. But when those walls go, the graffiti target goes, the reason the mural goes, and the mural is you know, what happens to old walls. So we have photographed, is my understanding, so it's documented.
Right.
So if we wanted to put it somewhere else, we could.
Put it under the plaster, the plumber's one. So just my last question that you created. So the old stone wall that's there on St John's Wood, we're saying that belongs to Toyota.
No.
It's there a hell of a lot longer, excuse me.
This was above.
Oh, it was
It was above,
Yeah,
but you said the wall belonged to them.
no, the wall that the painting was on was above, but behind the stone wall. It was the side of their workshop. It wasn't our wall. It wasn't, I don't think it was technically on the boundary, in my view.
Mm.
So well, then I'll just give you one last question to end the whole lot. The stone wall that's there that was there when they didn't even drive Toyotas, does that belong to us or Toyota?
Directed somewhere.
Through the chair, I believe that is a boundary stone wall, so it would probably be half moon between us and Toyota, as any boundary fence essentially would be.
Okay.
Director Mike, go and check that in case Toyotas look nicer than stone walls, maybe in time. Anything? Councillor Harris, yourself? Councillor Barnett?
I just have, well, not really, it's just by way of explanation about a bit more what's happened to that mural.
I'll allow a brief explanation.
Yes, I understand that the manager, Caroline, had sometime investigated that could be moved down to the railway line, being a bit more associated, you know, with railways and things. But I don't think it was able to be moved. It wasn't suitable to go up anywhere. That's my understanding.
Mine too. Okay, thank you. There being no further questions about those. Right, item 12.1, the Eastern Waste Management Authority Award Special Meeting Minutes of the 18th of the 5th, 2018. Recommendations on page 7. Would you care to move that we receive and note those minutes? Deputy Mayor, much appreciated. Who should speak to it? Seconder? Councillor Lee, who should speak to it? Any further debate? That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. Unanimous. Item 12.2, Audit Committee meeting recommendations for the 21st of 2018. Someone happy to move that we receive and note those minutes?
So moved.
Councillor Barnett, who should speak to it? Another seconder? Councillor Lee, who should speak to it? Any further debate? Councillor Baker.
I just wanted to raise a couple of points with the audit committee raised. It was around the operational cost for the CLIP project hadn't been sort of finalised, and I just wanted a bit of clarification, maybe through the CEO about what's happening in that space.
Thank you, CEO.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. So the staff have been working on a new service delivery model for the opening of the new building, particularly focused on customer service and the library. Part of looking at the potential operating costs will be to have a look at the outgoings as well. We're about to commence that work. So that's outgoings in relation to electricity, water, security, etc. So the technical moving on to having a look at the total cost of running the building, particularly given that the contractual arrangements around selecting things like the air conditioning and the lights are coming to a conclusion. So we'll be able to do some assessment in terms of the potential operating costs associated with those. We haven't actually been in a position to be able to present that to you until the final decisions in respect to many of those items have been undertaken. But we will certainly making a commitment to do that so that you will get a comprehensive understanding of the future operating costs of the building based on the design and the elements within it.
Thank you.
Just a question of how soon that will be, because obviously, you know, if we can get a figure within $100,000, I mean, if it's a deficit of what we're spending now, if it's an extra $200,000 over a long term, and that's a considerable amount. And obviously, given that we're looking at things like rate capping and that kind of thing, I'm just wondering how soon we can have that information.
See ya.
Thank you again. So the long-term financial plan has operating costs built within it to ensure that the amount of operating costs we're incurring at the moment is translated into the long-term plan. So we will have budgeted for operating of the building based on our existing consumption. The actually providing you with a more accurate figure relies on the final determination of elements as I've spoken to you about in terms of the air conditioning and the lights in particular. So once those have been determined, we'll be able to get an assessment in terms of the energy use, etc. So we're waiting at the moment to finalise that. There's a workshop in July for you to consider the lighting options on the building and within the building. And once you've made some final determinations in relation to that, work will commence. So I'm anticipating that we should be able to do that in the second half of this year.
See, just a question from me. My understanding was that the saving has been assumed and incorporated into the long-term plan for plans. So technically is right. If we don't achieve the saving, that there's an extra cost that comes to there. But you just stated that what are the current costs of running it into a long-term plan. Can you just clarify, is it the current costs or is the costs less 316,000, whatever it is? What is in the long-term plan?
Sure, so I can seek clarification from the Director, but we have actually built in savings into the long-term plan based on those initial figures. The issue that we have is that the assessment in terms of those long-term savings hasn't yet been made in terms of the outgoings. So that's what we need to do.
The power and the water. And
that's correct.
Thank you. Anything further, Councillor? Thank you. Any further debate on this item? There's a move by Councillor Bunnett to sum up. That concludes debate. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Item 13.1, community consultation for road naming, Prospect 1838 development, stage 1, recommendations on page 19 to 20. So I'm happy to move that way. Councillor Harris, do you wish to speak to it?
Sorry, you said you're moving it. Is that what you said?
Does somebody wish to move it?
I might, but I need to ask a question.
Very disappointing the chap didn't show up today because it makes me very hard to ask questions. And I didn't actually get a map that I was trying to find. But if my question goes to on page 26, which is page 25, is a map of the current area we're talking about right tonight.
Yep.
And without the other bits, it's a bit hard for me. But my question to somebody here is, first, is that Clairview Drive go right through the Clarabelle right through the whole project? No, we'll see. We've only got a third of the project.
Director?
Through the Chair, essentially, you're right, we've only got a third of the project approved as a land division. So Clarabelle Drive could end there, junction with something else, or it could become a major thoroughfare through the entire estate. It will rely on them lodging the next stage land division, which will have to link to Clarabelle Drive, but it will then show how long Clarabelle Drive, or whatever it's going to be known as, will be. So essentially, we can't really make any assumptions on where that road will go or where it will end, other than that it will exist in order to link stage 1 with stage 2.
At the Director, isn't there only one right-hand turn out of this whole project, and that's what they're proposing is Devonport Terrace, which means that Clarabelle becomes a major part of the development because you get in and out the north part via Devonport. I can't remember that.
Through the Chair, it is likely that Clarabelle Drive will be a long extension through the entire stage 2, but there's nothing to stop them conceptually T-junctioning at that point or straddling it around a corner and it changing names. Conceptually. But in all likelihood, it's the major north-south corridor through
stages 2 and
The
3.
entire estate.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Councillor.
Okay, my last two questions before then I'll move it. So is in the diagram we've got, there's a park, right, on the Devonport Terrace side. We can name that, is that correct? And any other parks that come in. Well, that's not a park. That's even worse.
Well, sorry, Director, could you define what is that open space at the end of Lion Kiln Lane linking into Devonport Terrace?
Through the chair, we would recognise that as a reserve, which could be subject to the name, called a link park or a small open space, but essentially that is the only area of public open space within stage 1.
But just for clarity, Part 2F refers to a central park. It is the intention of this motion to call that the central park, as was there some other park that the word central park referred to?
Through the chair, this may have been an error in reading the plans. I was just discussing with the finance manager earlier this evening, in that they had seen concepts for stage 2 which had shown Central Park or something similar, and they misread this plan with that vacant lot, which we would refer to as a super lot. They've read that as a Central Park, which is actually not on stage 1.
So just now, I'm confused from the chair. We need to know what the recommendation is referring to. Someone's going to ask someone to move it in a second. If they know what they're moving, that's not very clear. So the word Central Park refer to that quite small link park, or do they refer to the obligation this developer has to provide a fairly large park in stage 2?
Through the chair, I would read that it relates to a future obligation to a larger open space area in stage 3.
That's my understanding. Councillor, does that answer your question? I asked a few others thinking that's where you were headed.
Okay, my last question is on the, because the developer or representative didn't come tonight, and we know the question, and I was at a meeting with Chris over there the other day, that have we got anything back from the developer saying in some area that they will, with us, have an Indigenous name somewhere? The reason I'll ask that question is because without that, I'm willing to move this motion, taking out that one drive to decide later. And that gives them still the right so they can write up their paperwork to sell their land and all that. I just don't want, because a street, a park can have two names. Sorry, I didn't mean to speak about it.
Oh, you're only asking questions at this stage.
But a street, generally, you can only have one name. Although we have some here with a different name each end, but that's another question. So I'm concerned, I'm asking the chair that as it is, I'd like to move the motion of, I think it's about 4 streets or something, excluding that one in the middle until we can have some sort of guarantee from ourselves and the developers that we can have an Indigenous recognition, i.e. through a name, in the project. And that's what I was hoping at least he'd come tonight.
Your question is, can you move an alternate motion?
With one street less.
I understand that. It is an alternate motion to what's been advertised on the public agenda. What I'll do first is I'll ask if someone wishes to move it as it currently is, which is as per the papers, which allows for us to discuss with the public an Indigenous name. Or do we move it, the effect of taking out part E?
I've got some other suggestions as well.
It'll be, well, I'm really not sure what you're proposing now. I'm just interested to see if anyone wishes to move it as it is.
Can you suspend? Can you just suspend sending water so we know?
It might be helpful. Secretly,
got some other research on it.
Until 8:15, until if we need it. Those in favour? Against? Thank you. We'll just carry on. I think we're perfectly entitled to move what's here. And I was going to suggest somebody adds the word future in front of Central Park and add the small reserve also being subject to an Indigenous naming exercise with the community. I'm a bit concerned if you take it out, there's no discussion about an Indigenous name at all. And I think we just have to go back and do it again at some later point. And I'd much rather do it all together. That's just my view. Part
E.
Yeah. So the idea of Part E is that we go to the public saying, they're suggesting Clareville, but what about this Indigenous name? Which one do you think would work better? And we make a decision at a future meeting.
Well, we're just not, from my understanding, it hasn't happened yet. We haven't, I don't mean just what happens in the bigger picture, we haven't had a situation where a road, street, that's all that, has two names. Whereas in a park, yes. So if you're going to live in the street and it's got a garden name and this name, it would be confusing to the postman, all that sort of stuff. So to me, the question on the E is the road mark, road E can be assigned both an Indigenous name and that. Well, I don't.
So, sorry, Mitch, I mean the intention is not that the road have two names. The intention is that we go to the public consultation with two names and ask people's opinion on which one name they prefer.
Okay, so it doesn't sort of read like I think read.
Yes.
That one is signed both.
It should be all. Be signed in either an Indigenous name or Clareville.
Yeah, the wording's not as good as it could be, that's true. And might ask somebody to be working on certain wording. The intention of the director is that it only have one name.
That's not.
Yeah.
Not that it has two, not that we're going out for dual naming, that we offer the public a chance to comment on Clareville, and we ask them to comment on a Gunner name. And then we make a decision about what name we choose of the two.
So just for you, the meeting we had the other night, we put into people, Aboriginal group of people that does naming, so if they come up with a name, just Wirra, I suppose, Boris, Wirra, and we got this name, then both of those names would go out, is that?
Yes.
That's right.
And we'd say to the public, which one do you prefer? And we'd listen to that, come back in the chamber and we'd say, well, we decide it's going to be that one.
Okay, well then in my case, I would be happy to take about the word both, be signed two names for the consultation, like one or the other. My personal.
Or could you have Road E assigned the option of two different Indigenous names, and then there's a guarantee there's actually an Indigenous name in the
Right, can we get to that in a second? I think, so yeah, can you change the wording so that it's not so definitive, that Road E, that two options be provided for Road E, something like that. There's a little bit more discussion around where people are at. So Councillor Bagg is indicating that don't want Clareville consult on it at all. Is that where you were referring?
I don't think so. I think it was clear from the last council meeting that the council desired some Indigenous names. And there's been no consultation that I can see in between times to have some Indigenous name suggestions up there. And that's what I would have liked to see. Because, I mean, if you put, you probably be able to, is it Menindee, the original name? And the meaning of it or whatever. But obviously, you'd have to consult with the Kaurna people to something that's, has a story and a reasoning for being named that.
Yes. Yeah, so your concern is that even we haven't seen what the Indigenous suggestion might be, and we might think it's rubbish.
Well, I'm not saying it's rubbish, but it would be nice for the public to actually see names in it in this report, and we haven't done that.
Good point. Okay. Other discussion? Christina, on the...
Yes. Well, I think, there's that the alternative naming instead of just our anglicised name, so we're sort of getting that through. But I think it would make sense to have Devonport Terrace, Road A, have that continue. That just to me seems logical, common sense. And for Road C, I've actually put in a Prospect Local History Group hat on, done a bit more research on this, and I suggest that one of the names that could be put up, the anglicised names, could be Reepham, instead of, because we've already got Irish Harp, could be Reepham, because the suburb called Reepham was created in 1880. It was actually bounded by a prince. It's about one of those closest of suggestions of the old suburbs. It's the one that's closest to the actual development. It was bounded by Princes Street in the west, King Street in the east, Charles Street in the south, and Rakes Road or Regency Road in the north. I've just got here, quote, 300 men working across the road at Islington. It was only a matter of time before the land on the corner of Regency and Churchill Road was subdivided for housing. That happened in 1880, and it was given the name. And and we've still got the Reepham Hotel there, you know, which comes from all that history. So that could be one of the anglicised names, a suggestion I would put forward for Road C.
The one you said, we've already got an Irish Harp Lane somewhere. Where is that?
It was Road C was their suggestion. We're saying that's already been assigned as a name, so we can't have two in the city for geographical names.
Saying, where has it been assigned? That's my question.
I thought we in the papers there that there was already an Irish Harp Lane. Oh, it's Rosebery.
Yeah, which has been eliminated from the suggestion.
Oh, all right then. All right, so, I mean, I don't care whether they're road A, B, C, D or E, F. I would just like to get up some suggestions for names to go out to community consultation. So I don't really care whether it's except for road A, I think makes a bit more logical, common sense.
It's a continuation.
Yes, yeah. So for any other road suggestions, I'd just say Islington Avenue, and if we can still have Irish Harp Lane, that's fine. Reepham might be another one. I'm not all that fond of Limekiln Lane. I think it was further up to around Milner Street in Harrington where we actually had that.
Yeah, they were down there.
Pretty far removed, so that's why I wouldn't be all that in favour of Limekiln Lane. Claraville Drive, well, we've already got the main hall named Claraville. And that was actually an early subdivision south of another old suburb that's been and gone, Seaforth, on May North Road. It's a bit further back because it's centred on Percy Street, and that was first laid out in 1879 by George Bailey. And it was eventually one of the many small villages absorbed into Prospect. But we do have a link here with our town hall and the main hall being named Claraville, so I guess that's still a goer. Ellerville, well, it might be a lost cause as a lost suburb. All I could find was Ellerville Poultry Yard in Prospect. That was back in 1919. So it obviously existed, but I don't know who it's named after.
Chicken off.
Yes. And I think they've already said that the Tam O'Shanter Belt, that's to me a big no, because it's in Regent's Park. It's never really part of Prospect. Some of the, a lot of the Irish settlers settled there and sort of worked and lived there and with the railways. But it was really more to do with Sunnybray Farm and the sewerage farm. So that was more the history with the Tam O'Shanter. And the Ghana names, well, I'm sure our Ghana people will come up with them, but there are lots of examples. There are the native pines. There's also all around here in our area, there are peppermints, mallybox, red and white mallee, sugarwood. There are condongs, native cherries, shrubs, the desert senna, golden wattle, golden dust wattle, umbrella bush, native apricot and turkey bushes, and ground cover, salt bush, blue flax, flax lily, chocolate lily, native lily, native orchids, and your grasses, spear, windmill, wallaby and brush, and your fauna. So, and timber, huge wattle and gum trees, and before the Second World War, Prospect was known for its cover of pine, mallee and wattle scrub. So I think we'd...
Make your choices, is what you're saying.
Aboriginal Ghana names, I think we could come up, or they could come up with some quite wonderful suggestions for us.
Okay, so question to you, thanks for sorting the other issue out, get that second. question was, we've been asked to go for very specific historic names, but generic Indigenous suggestions. Why aren't we being asked to consider specific Indigenous suggestions? Because we might not like what someone comes up with, or we might not be comfortable, and that would be embarrassing if we're going to have to consult and it comes back and we say start again.
I agree, and I'll just refer to Jenny, who's been managing this whole project with the developer.
Yeah, so the idea to go to consult, this report purely to go out to consultation. So the idea with, if we were to have an Indigenous name, we will actually consult with the Ganawara Karapanji about Aboriginal Corporation, as well as the local history group to come up with a name. So from their suggestion, with some details to come back to council, that was the idea of the consultation.
So
name.
Are you suggesting that we don't need to move this because you're going to go away and do some work? And
No, we need council to move that we will have an Indigenous name. So this is a consultation, this is a report to go out to consultation.
But what
through
name
that,
are we asked the public to consider? What Indigenous name are we asked to consider?
Yes,
Question now.
cart before the horse, in my opinion. I mean, we're already coming up with, you know.
I have a further question. Why, I just see that as tokenism. I think it's really sad that we have one road where the public gets a choice of whether we have an Indigenous name or not. I don't know why do we have more Indigenous names then? Prospect's history did not start with any of this. Prospect's history is quite original with an Indigenous history, and I just think it's pretty less than ordinary and just tokenism, just to say, oh, you know what, you guys, you can choose whether we have one or not. I'm really disappointed with this. I would prefer to see far more or to have more. Prospect's already, history is named everywhere. I think we should respect our Indigenous history. I'm really disappointed.
Director, are you able to answer that question as to why they've chosen these names and not others?
so they have complied with our naming policy. So they have complied with our naming policy in terms of they're marketing the area as the 1838. I think white settlers type area, and look at Prospect, what are the industries and what have they followed. So basically those names will stand based on that. So that was the reason. So we have spoken to the developer during after the last council meeting, indicating that what is the appetite, can we look at Indigenous name, and their indication is they will prefer not to. They will consider for the next stage of the development.
They're doing lots of considering for the next. They're doing lots of considering for the next stage. We'll consider where we have greenland, etc.
So you should suspend any procedures to half-past.
Yes. But they've already consulted.
Finish off this comment. Sorry. Monica, did you want to finish off?
Quite strongly, I'm not happy. I'm not happy with this. I just think it's really tokenistic, and I think we could do much better with respecting Indigenous history. And I didn't realise that's what 1838 meant on that address line, and bloody hell, that's shocking. That's really shocking.
In their defensibility, but these people have gone out of their way to embrace history. You might not like the bit of history they've chosen, but they could have chosen to name one of the streets Susan, the other Tom, and the other what his brother's name is. They haven't. So we want to embed ourselves in your city, it's our city. We want to reflect history in this area, it's important history. And they went and did their own research and said this area was settled in 1838. I didn't understand why they chose that date, but that's their record checking, and they've worked very closely with their history groups, my understanding, to try and understand some of the relevance in this area. So they have gone to some effort. So it wouldn't be fair to characterise them as being not people who cared about history. You might like their bit of it, but they have got a lot of trouble. Now, a few people wanted to speak, I'm not quite sure the order. Those who haven't spoken first. Mark.
Thank you. I'll be sitting on my hands, but I think I need to say a couple of things. In the paper, I just want to read this out. Council's Reconciliation Action Plan is focused on dual naming of parks, reserves and places. So that's our Reconciliation Action Plan. We've got a commitment to acknowledging the first owners of land. So that's the first thing I want to just remind us of. The second thing, sorry, I'm just going to go back and forth. So the issue about whether a future road or a future park gets named is absolutely an academic exercise at this point because nothing's been published. There is the option that they might choose not to provide the park, as we think they might, and make a payment instead. So if they'd come to us, if they'd lodged a plan and said, this is park and this is what's going to be called, or at least a commitment that call this something, I'd have a very different view to this, but we've not got that. It's a shame the Deputy didn't come tonight. He had a missed opportunity for us to answer this question. So I've got an issue with the fact that we're hedging our bets on something that may not happen. I'm really concerned about that. Third thing I want to say was that in our naming policy, we identify sources and names as being sources such as, I just want to go just very briefly, appropriate physical, historical or cultural characters, Ellerville, tick. Early explorers, pioneers or settlers, Clarabelle, tick. Eminent persons, Rosebery, tick. Local history, Limekiln, tick. Thematic names such as 4 and 4 ships, O'Shanta, tick. War casualty list, Islington, tick. Commemorative names, Irish Heart. Now these, I know not all these made the cut, but they're all included. Aboriginal names taken from the local Aboriginal language, can't find one. So they've gone to every single source in our policy except the one that we're most passionate about. And I thought we made that really, really clear at our last mess. I'm really, the developers have not read the tea leaves at all in this respect, and I'm really concerned about that. And the other bit of the paper that I want to refer to, the overall development provides an unprecedented opportunity for council to introduce one or more Indigenous names in council's roads network, one or more, which is considered an opportunity not to be missed. Well, if we approve this tonight, we'll be missing it. So I just think it doesn't even go close enough to being something that I would support. And I just want to pick up on that point, which is it feels a bit arse about. We should have gone out, done the consultation around Indigenous names with the Indigenous elders and then put that up. And I think by doing this, it just feels like we're ticking a box, which is actually the wrong box that we should be ticking. So my views haven't changed from when I made my comments last meeting.
Could I just add, because I wasn't at the last meeting, that the developers were provided, because I actually provided them with, pointing out that what it was, there was no and that these were suggestions, and some of them that I've already read out. So I just think it needs to be, reinforced to them that. They didn't just have the European names provided to them when they consulted with the history group. It was made quite clear that, there was pre-colonial and pre-European opportunities for names as well.
Yeah, a little bit someone because I haven't seen it face to face, I do, but I just look at one of our employees over there. We've had a meeting last week about this, but just very quickly, a question on the diagram. At the end of the Limekiln Lane, that little thing with the rigging going through, would that be a park going from Limekiln Lane to Bessencourt Terrace? Yes.
It's a link. It's where the bike path is.
Because if they're going to name a park, they might say, well, we'll name that thing there. But to go back with what people sent us away, and unfortunately Chris wasn't there, sent us away to have a look at, we've had a meeting with Uncle Lewis and Brendan and Therese himself and that, and talking about the Ghana naming people and that. But in that discussion, if you put 100 things he said and then take a few out to what you need, and in fact that he worked there, so perhaps we should call him his name, but people, particularly the Menindee people, now it's nowhere near there, it's right over the other side of the town, but it's in our town, and it's people that live there. All the rest was unfortunately, I don't know, was moving type people down around, just on the other side, and tell us how to been here sorry, I apologise. On that sort of other side where there was down, there was occasional water holes through seaweeds that come. So there were sinkholes around there that people stayed there. And actually Uncle Lewis knows the names, not individual names, but the names of where people actually stayed there.
It's a food trail right from there, right up to the hills.
They were. But the Menindee people were there. The Limekiln one, when we talk about that, and we got Davies Terrace over our side of the the other side of the road. And if you look at that, the Davies Him, the person that was named after, he ran nearly all the kilns in the area. So we have sort of got something there, but my thing is particularly what a couple of people here said, if we pass that, and I'm happy with all the rest, but if we pass that and something doesn't happen further down, we've missed the chance of possibly having two names. Now, I don't know, I look at this group of people that Uncle Lucius put us through, that where we send, so we would set that area, say it's the Regal Hotel, it's the best idea, but Regal down there to the railway line, we're talking about that area. Those people go and research that area, and if it has any significance. Chris and I were here, and others would have, I know, would have done the same. None of were over the other side. When we gave that up to look for the names, it came from the native tribes. That's the whole meaning of the points. In the area. And not only did they come in, they were used for Old Parliament House and Old Government House, so it had a history for our area that fitted. Now, there might not be a name, so they will end up giving us a suggestion of another name, and that's where your sort of comments fit in. If they give us a suggestion of another name, we say, oh, look, we're not having. But when I can't see a park apart from that little quarter of an inch, quarter of an inch by an eighth of an inch, I don't know in modern talk, but I hate to walk away and say, here's a whole brand new area and great, fantastic. Oh, did you remember the Aborigine people? Oh yeah, we've got a little park down there, a creek. Oh, I said creek, only if it rains, but it's a creek. You know, I'm a bit, and if the bloke had come here, he might have made me feel happy, or, you know, made me feel a bit better on it. But I think it was you, David, or if it wasn't you, it was someone else that did say, this is most of our last opportunity in reality of naming an area or a street or whatever, unless we change others, but to name a new one. And I feel if we move this, we've most probably missed the opportunity. But I understand why they want it moved, to fit into the plans and all that stuff. But I can't do it because I think we've missed the only opportunity, or the last opportunity we got, particularly this council, but even future ones.
Thank you, Mark. I just think party is the most incredibly disrespectful. It's almost as if the word should say of consultation on one of which is a generic Indigenous name and the other is this specific Clariville Drive. It's just like, it doesn't matter what Indigenous name is, we'll just put one in there, it'll be fine for the consultation. I think we need to consult with the traditional owners first, get their suggestion, so it's a suggestion that is considered and relevant to the area. I just think it's horse before the cart. We've got one suggestion from the people, the Clariville Drive. We don't have another suggestion from the other side, and I would be hesitant to vote on this unless I see their suggestion for the name.
Okay, thank you. I think everyone has had a chance to say something. Get to Ginny in a second. I think we just need to be cognizant that we've known this site was going to be developed for over 8 years, and we haven't assembled a list of potential Indigenous names. So I think we should be very careful about trying to point the finger here. With, you know, we could have done that, because here's the next name off the rank. We have it. It's come before us. The developer has gone about their whole marketing pitch around this element of our history, and that's been known. They've had the banners up there for a long, long time. So we shouldn't be surprised that they would be surprised that we have this fundamental disagreement with where they're at. So I just want to make that really, really clear that we've got to be careful how we move forward in the cold light of day. If we want to do something different to what they've proposed, I think we've got to respect that they did give this a go in terms of their policy. It's not like they've plucked these names out of their own family history or obscurity. They have read our policy, they have consulted, they have done research. If we want to do something different, I think we've got to be really clear about what we want them to do differently. And we have to help. Because quite
We
frankly,
only want one more thing when he read out 7 things. We only want them to also abide by Rule 7 or whatever he said.
yeah, Rule 7, there are 6 others.
Yeah.
So
6 out of 7 is good, actually.
thank you. That's my point. Right? So some people have been pretty critical. If you grade them 6 out of 7, you'd probably technically be right. We're saying we want you to put more emphasis on the 7th. That's fine, but we haven't said that before. So it might be helpful if we want to move something that we haven't moved that way, haven't resolved that way, is what I'm saying, and the staff haven't directed them that way because we haven't directed the staff that way. If someone can tell me where we've directed the staff over the last 8 or so years that we want the very next street to be named an Indigenous name, you show me, because we haven't.
All right, I'll defend myself here. No one. 1838, and I know what the date means, and all that, and I felt excited that they'd met with the history group, which I knew they had, and they talked about the area and things that come up, and that's 100% good, and I still support that idea. To me, then only whenever this come up a month ago or whatever it is that they didn't include 0.7 in. So I didn't, I've got my own, I'll take it, they can say as they want with me. But
hang on, I'm not saying they're angry, I'm not saying what they feel like at all. I'm saying
I, as well as others, let them down by not saying anything. I felt they were very conscious of our history, and that's why the banner said, I haven't looked at it too much because too many homeless people sleep alongside it, unfortunately. But when you do it, I'm going to say 1838, it's when we came to Crossfields.
not that old.
Later, but we came there, and so I see them doing that sort of thing. But when this comes, and to be real good to them, I moved this motion originally until one of my fellow co-councillors pointed out, what about 0.7 that they haven't done it? And I was at a loss. So it's almost like they really said, we ruined the tram bar.
Max, so
I think you're
reiterating the point I made. Okay, the very last meeting this came before us, and you were quite happy to move it as it was with no mention of Indigenous stuff at all. Okay? So we have formed a view over the last 4 weeks, councillors. We've formed a view over the last 4 weeks, which we have not formally communicated before. So we're all playing catch up. We've got to be respectful that this is a process that will be a unique opportunity. We need to communicate that really clearly back to the developer. Right? So I'm going to seek your leave to suspend meeting procedures for another 15 minutes to get real clarity, because clearly the noises we made last month weren't interpreted with enough clarity, because what came back to us here before us tonight is to go out with some Indigenous name suggestions, and some of you have reacted quite strongly against this. So let's be really clear. Let's not leave this meeting tonight without being really clear about what we're asking for. We don't want to do this 3 months in a row. Right? That would be really, really embarrassing. So let's leave the meeting to suspend meeting procedures until 8:45, or suspended.
Could I just suggest that we have to quickly, I don't know how quickly it can move, come up with a list of our first preferences for any namings of any of the streets or the parks in that development, whatever, or any stage of it, is to have Indigenous, or most probably Kaurna names relevant to our area, So we need a list of those, because there are going to be more streets to be named, and hopefully some park, small or large, or both. So I think we need to get out together, come up with our list of Indigenous names relevant to our area, and then part B is the names that, if it gets to that point, the ones that we like, that are the European names.
Well, I think that's sensible because that would last beyond this particular issue. We'd have a list. Yeah. Can I have some other suggestions? Matt, we have heard.
I have a question, and it might be a dumb question, but I'll ask it anyway. And I might ask Alan for an answer. So, do the Indigenous people want streets named after them? I can understand parks and those kind of things because it seems like there's a bit more relevance and significance and a bit more feeling about them. Do they actually, have we asked that question first of all, or have we just presumed that we should be doing this?
Consulted prior to this report coming before us, we would have found out that.
Yes.
We haven't consulted, even though it's very strongly in the last council meeting that it needed to be at least considered.
There are hundreds of examples of suburbs named after Aboriginal.
I understand that, but the question is...
Matt's asked Alan, and Alan's our rep on the rack.
The answer that came up in that discussion was about roads. That's why it came up with about two roads. Roads had two names.
Yeah.
And it was not common to have Indigenous roads, although there's a couple of places that have got quite a few. But, so the discussion was to see if there was a name.
Yeah.
And see if that bit just hasn't happened yet. I haven't let it be written for them, but it hasn't happened. But the main concern is when we spoke to Lloyd talking, and he was talking on behalf of him, that if we look at, and if we've got a decent, proper name for decent parks, that would be more than satisfying. And I'll be honest, I push that point too, because the road for Aboriginal people didn't seem to be that important than a sitting place, a place that you were there. You can't talk about people from this area because there is none left. So you talk about they have walked on this land, so we should have it. So, what you should be asking then, we're going to look at Indigenous names for Central Park. My fear is there, is that the Central Park? Jesus Christ. Can someone tell me, is that the Central Park? And that's what I tried to find out today.
Look, so and I've asked this question. My understanding is that the overall land subdivision relies upon there being a park in stage 2. Okay, that we've insisted that there needs to be open space as part of stage 2. They have the right under the Development Act not to do that, but give us a whole pile of money, give the government a whole pile of money instead. We would say, no, we don't want the money, we want a park. But it's not that little thing. That's like a link. So when I read this, I assumed about the park in stage 2. You certainly tighten that up. So I see a couple of the hands, Mark.
This is a bit sort of out of left field, but here goes. Could we, as a start, de-link which road is called which name? So first of all, like I don't think most people are going to care whether that road's that name or that road's that name. I think
you would see on their website they've got Clarabelle Terraces and something. So I don't know if there's a relationship.
I'm just talking.
They've named the house design after these names, but set that aside for a second.
So I think because what we're starting to do, because I agree with the council standing that road E, the road to nowhere is kind of the token Indigenous. We actually de-link which road and which name as a start. And then the second bit is that there's a list of names here that they go out for consultation as the list of names, plus whatever organisation that you mentioned before, Jenny, if they can do that quick enough, come up with 2 or 3 names. And then our intent is that at least one name must be Indigenous. So we're not actually linking road names to roads. What we're saying is, here's a list of them, one of them has to be an Indigenous name. And then the bit about linking the roads, the names to the actual road. And I think the second bit is actually linking, and the Mayor mentioned this, tightening up the bit about the Central Reserve, actually making it very, very clear that if it's 1 square metre or other square metres, that has to be Indigenous name. So that will give us two Indigenous names, one link road, which I would be happy to support.
So can I just go a little bit further with that? It seems to me that Devonport Terrace shouldn't change name where it's along the train line. It could change names where it goes back towards Churchill Road. But does anybody have any objection to that whole L-shaped thing being called Devonport Terrace?
No.
Well, I think where we can be really clear, we're not going to change our mind, we should say that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd be happy with
that.
It seems to make sense to me. The other ones, I agree, will totally up for grabs, and Alison makes a point. They have called the type of townhouse design after these names. But once you live in the thing, you won't be known as number 4 Clariville block. You'll be known as number 4 wherever it is street. So I'm not worried about that. It's just their marketing pitch. And I kind of like both of these suggestions, so we'll just try and draw this a bit tighter. I think Christina's idea that we have an understanding of Indigenous names that are relevant to us would be a good thing anyway. That some of those could apply to this would be, of course, an obvious outcome. And it seems to me that if Devonport is the right solution to that one, then there are 3 other roads and a little park that are definites in this stage. There's Clariville, which I think they're creating the entrance to. Pretty sure that that'll be locked in, but they could sell the land and someone could shift that point. But we could leave that as an unnamed road at this point if we wanted to, and leave the Central Park unnamed at this point because they don't exist, so to speak. I'll come back to a technicality on that point, but we could say Devonport, yes, there are 3 other roads. 1 or 2 of those must be an Indigenous name, and the little park we want to have an Indigenous name. Does that sound like somewhere we could go with this?
I'd like to see more than one road Indigenous because I've thought about thing of tokenism. I think there needs to be a balance of white history and black history. That's what
or recent and ancient would be a better way.
Or pre-European and post-European.
Matt?
Looking at it from the developer's perspective, there would need to be the ability to plan some sort of logicness around having one name by itself from their point of view would stand out, and that would be weird. But if we could do something to encourage them to have multiple names throughout the whole thing, I think they could weave that into their story from a marketing point of view a lot more easily rather than one. So I'm not sure what we can encourage them to do. We can't force them to do that. But to me, from a marketing perspective, there's a story you can tell there that's a lot better than just, well, we gave them one street name because we kind of had to. So if we could give them, I'm not looking to give them an out, but if we can give them some encouragement on those lines, then that might help them think about how to sell that.
Presumably, when they launch the other stage, we'll have the same debate.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
When somebody
launches,
Exact same debate because we'll probably
presumably,
decisions around that.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, like, whatever we do here, we have to have this whole conversation here before a future stage.
Yeah, which is why I like Christina's idea that
You want someone tap.
you have some of it, like we had laneway names available, a better list of those ready to be allocated.
Yeah. Could I just add that Reed is the only Canberra suburb within which all streets bear Aboriginal names. So Reed is the only suburb in Canberra that has all Aboriginal names. So they've got a whole lot of them here.
Sorry, can I just have any other comments on the one that we would work with somebody somewhere, presumably Indigenous naming specialists, to develop a pool of names relevant to this area. Secondly, that we go back to the developer and say, we want you to come up with a balance of names. And I'd suggest, I'll just pitch a minimum of 2 roads and the park, the small park, an Indigenous name. Just to be really specific. Does anybody want to insist on more than that?
That's including Road E. Because you said before maybe excluding.
We could add Road E. I'm just, for the sake of this discussion, the stuff that's actually going to be built and named. There are Devonport, we should confirm, okay, but the other 3, of those 3, seem to me people wanted more than one Indigenous name. So if that's the case, we should say we wanted 2 of them named with an Indigenous name and the park. And the Central Park will be a later exercise, and Road E we would like an Indigenous name for as well. We want to be really with it. Right?
Yeah, and I think someone said before that we need to just be careful that we don't lock ourselves into Indigenous names that might not be, might not be suitable to be street names, like something like Wagga Fuffles or something like that.
Respectful of our history.
Yeah, I mean,
People should realise when we had this meeting, we also talked about names for our city, in particular Prospect Oval, Northview Oval, and other names that concerned our city. So that would give you that pool that you're talking about. And I didn't realise Eglinton Avenue, there's two of them.
Sorry, can I just have it, just on this discussion get broader than it already is? Mike, just a few comments on my suggestion, that's picking up your suggestions, Alison and then Christine.
Just away from numbers and street names, I was really interested in what Alan had to say about this meeting. So what I gathered from what he's saying, that would really inform us because, you know, whether it would be in a workshop or whatever, because there's obviously a big gap in knowledge between the developer and elected members, and I'm certainly not going to presume, you know, things are appropriate like Councillor Love said, so, you know, I just want to be informed personally about all of those.
The pool of names you'd think would be associated with some workshop to explain them all to us.
Well, and also meaning and appropriateness, so I would value that conversation.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. Christine?
Yes, and I'm not in favour of having Tam O'Shanter built because it's not, they did mention it and they may use it later on.
Oh, okay.
I just really want stuff that's more us and it's not, you know, Bullade Enfield. There's clearly a name there. Yeah.
Okay. Any further comments on this? I intend to call the adjournment so I can work with the staff that have been working here on a suggestion. I'll call that adjournment until 10:02 and we'll come back and have a look at an alternate motion. I'm assuming that, I'll ask, I'm assuming that no one will move this is currently before us and I will go to an alternate motion which we'll work out and have a look at. Okay? See you at 10:02.
Yeah. It's like, I'm going to move the second, but I've got a question, and that is that we're reliant on government funding and Maris funding for 43%, something like that. They're saying let's chip in 50.
I think we can.
That's it, you don't have to.
No, that's it. You don't want something that's suitable to be. What is this? You can kill an Uber driver. 33.
Well, see, a lot of those ones in Reed, they're all flush, aren't they?
If council put in 50,
Yeah.
the 3 marriages in 10, then it works. I might be able to get slightly cheaper price to
Be compiled
for use, but in the first instance, to make this work, we've got to put our money down, and then I'll come. If I can get that 33, 10, I won't need to come back.
and that we presented to a workshop discussion.
And the other situation might be we go with the wireless solution.
Will that be considered a short term, is it short term or is it more risky or is it less effective?
It's a lesser option because it will be.
It's not a big enough jump.
Yeah.
So to me, it feels like we either do it, or we don't do it.
Yeah.
So where's that motion again?
Consult with council.
So there's 5 parts to the recommendation. So that's the first 2 are simple. We can say this came to council and
Suggest a
motion came to light and we didn't move forward with the motion at that point in time. We went out and we got expert advice to ensure that we consider all the information that was available. So if we did go down this path, we had investigated and we had the right option table. So that's part 1 and part 2. Part 3 is fairly simple. That's just more of an administrative.
Yeah. Same part 4, because we can always go with the same.
Saying to Mark, I'm trying to.
Then it's actually extending it out to the rest buckets, which is fine.
And in Kyoto all week.
If we didn't do that, we don't have to do the crossovers, and we're only up for.
I'm trying to do all this on here.
24 is the local. 67 is directional boring. 67 is directional boring and the crossovers.
Yep.
24.
They're buying
Based on the actual.
Yeah, is the actual local area network.
back, and they can make bags out of the cross. So
and screw everybody else.
I did when we were in October, they had
Looking at the various.
Mm-hmm.
If we said to screw everybody else, just look after ourselves. We'll do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then we'll just have our one crossover.
Yeah, we could do a version of it, but connect the Mars bit.
And they went, yeah, let's buy tickets. And then they went, oh crap, that's economic. But they had to come up and say they had to go. And so,
The answer to this question.
the time of their life.
Once we've done this initial work, we're putting in infrastructure which in future could be tapped into for more sites.
Yeah, so the Foodland building here.
Yeah.
Workshop.
Whatever.
Mars,
we get rid of that.
Another development that could tap into it.
I mean, sending me photos to try and make me laugh.
So this kind of, so the village heart goes, what's defined as a village heart?
Village heart goes to BWS.
So we wouldn't consider.
Well, we'd have to, if we wanted to go further, we'd have to get more money.
You piggyback on that down the track?
Yeah, you can keep on expanding that.
Nothing to stop us.
So yeah, I mean, gives us interest.
They've spent there.
And
So they had, that's what they just had while they were waiting for their room. They're staying at the Marriott in Osaka.
I just love the Bubba Jackson.
Still there.
starting to get international offers or just people coming to Adelaide just simply based on Big City. So if we've got the same connection, we'll get hopefully some international offers. People
Along the river when they do the when they put all the restaurants outside during summer over the river. I've only ever been there in October when it's all been
that far. Infrastructure in place. So we could do something with 50 Maris.
I loved there was one.
And I think...
So what about if people said, finance the general public and say, all right, so we've got the NBN in across the whole of the council area. Isn't that enough? We say, no. And then we said, okay, so we've got the superfast Wi-Fi along here, which was spent some amount of money on. Isn't that enough? So, and then we'll say, well, no.
The general.
Oh yeah,
Australia was great.
Yeah. So can this is not a Wi-Fi network where the general public can go, let's look into the SaberNet thing. This is specifically
commercial
to provide
commercial
a pipe, tap into the pipe that's running through, and then pipe up to those 4 sites and other sites in the future.
Other sites in the precinct in the future.
To give.
they did it.
Yeah, we can.
They did a workshop.
We're not far away from that.
So who else can say that?
They made bags.
Oh, bags.
They made bags. Look, they're the bags they made. The workshop. And they're in
It's simply Adelaide City.
like over the workers.
Yeah.
They haven't got.
When we were in Japan last year they had the general elections. That guy was from he was the Communist Party. And we always thought he looked like Mephisto. He looked like he was, needed to have a globe there or something like that.
Is there any problem with being first movers here? The kind of first movers, are there any learnings that will come out of this that we could, that if someone else did it, we could see they can go,
Oh, yeah.
there and there.
They do that all through Japan.
No, I think what
So they just kind of
City obviously first moved
the markets just
and we're learning from them that they're huge big starting.
So we have the precedents.
Yeah, they're starting to do
fast market, 1,200 stores, 1,200 stores.
in their marketing that people are moving to their back.
See, happy ads finished, they've come back to their recipe. So they had,
I then showed this guy here
7 nights, I think, in a,
saying is that
and then the last
start to have this increased speed,
Marriott and
particularly the co-working spaces.
That was the R&R.
Dead and
Have got kids in
bloody this, you know.
I think it was just
but they are actually using that data. Give people the data, and
some of them
I think I guess is that our data will be half the price of $400 a month. We're $179 a month or lower.
That's what she should have done.
Well, that sort of figure is an inconsequential figure.
Yeah. Played it twice over 2 days. She said, I'm covered in bruises.
So yes, we can work that up. We could probably get something. We might be able to get a system for 83,000. So these enterprises that I'm working with.
What gives us the confidence we're going to get this money?
I've had a chat with him. And when I was looking at this, I said, he said, how much do you need? We just go through. That's all you think. Just one conclusion.
Ready to go, folks. So try to encapsulate all those thoughts.
So it's a matter of us getting our share of the budget.
Yeah.
To the staff and to the developer. Hopefully this captures everybody's thinking. So if you have a read. Yeah.
Sorry. Does that mean a minimum of 2 streets to be indigenous plus road to be in indigenous name?
Yes.
That's right, plus a big part, plus a futures.
Oh, so to clarify and second thought plan.
Yeah. So just clarifying.
Isn't part 2 council request?
Yes. Up to monetary. Yeah, because after including June 9. Is it not what you want? Or whatever. No, that's what you meant by June 9. And especially parks. Including June 9. Including June 9. That's how I read that. No, I can't. I don't do that. See, I'm saying, what that says.
Even though it's considerably different to what was.
That's right.
Kate, shouldn't part 2 just be a separate
It's not in there. It's not
in brackets 2?
Councillor Backer.
I think one of the things last time.
That's more or less, that's additional to all the rest of what we're wanting them to do with their road.
It's probably not.
2, it should just be a number. I feel like it's a separate.
Part 2, you're referring to?
Well, you know, to consult with.
Consult to establish.
Yeah.
Surely we don't do it. I don't.
Yes, so you have council request staff to consult with Indigenous representatives.
Yes,
Same as part
yeah.
5.
Lovely.
That would be better. That's what was missed between.
Speaker. Any other questions about what's just been put in front of you? I appreciate it's the first time you've seen it.
We're on the run.
Quite different to what's in the public agenda papers, but I will accept it as an alternate motion from somebody somewhere.
Sorry?
Because it only got to questions before, didn't it?
Yes, we have nothing to the floor. I appreciate this is different to what's been advertised in the public agenda. Yes, we're not making a decision, so it doesn't have immediate consequence, but if we did make a decision in the papers, that's ground. It's better to let the public know what we're going to do. This will let the public know what we're going to do, and it will come to a future meeting, so I'm okay with that as the chair. Any other questions about this alternate motion? Councillor Lowe?
I'm not going to die in a ditch over the sort of second last part, but I favoured encouraging them to include Indigenous names in stage 2 and stage 3 of development as opposed to jamming them all into one. I think that would be a better outcome. Just wanted to say that.
I'll let you debate that, but I picked up the sense from the floor. I'm just trying to capture what I think is sentiment, but we can deal with that at debate. Any more questions, just in case there any clarity around what's up there? No? Okay, just for the sake of procedure, I will ask if anybody wishes to move what's in the advertised agenda at item 13.1. There being no mover, it lapses. I will accept an alternate motion. That one up there might look good for someone to move. Councillor Harris, happy to move it. Wish to speak to it any further?
Yes, just very briefly, and I might add that it's a long way away for me to see, so if I make a mistake, I forgive myself if no one else does. I feel the project's going ahead down on Churchill Road is very good for the city. I believe the developers are doing a fairly good job there, getting great benefits to new people and our city going. And I feel it's a great opportunity that if we follow this motion, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, another one popped up, sorry, 6, what's that one? Gives us the opportunity with the developers, with the current people that live in our city, with the history of the former people that live and travel through our city, to give something for very, very long future generations to have a respect and understanding of our area. So if the developers want to come back and talk something else to us, I'm open to listen to that as well in a friendly manner. But I believe this will be a very good opening point. And to do it, and to the people around the table, I will say that through a brief meeting we had the other day to start a process, which this includes a process talking to the Kaurna people, to the people from the Adelaide Plains, talking to them, their naming people and their reasons that, and in our city we can most probably have a bit of respect before we have a treaty and put this into practice. So I urge people to vote at this motion like it is.
Thank you. I second it. Councillor Barnett, you should speak to it.
Yes, happy to second, and really pleased that we've been able to have the informal discussion. It'll come back. I think it's just, I'll keep on plugging away that as a city, for our history, we really do need to come to grips with our pre-European history, and hopefully one day we'll actually be able to have it researched and done. But this is a start in the right direction.
Thank you. Any further speakers? There being none, just briefly from the Chair. It does take these moments to crystallise our thinking around these matters, and I think we have to admit that we're a bit embarrassed that we weren't as ready as we probably should have been given our passion around this topic. We need to play catch up, but it is moments like these that really make us stop and think, hang on a minute, we want to make a real mark of our ancient history in our modern city, and it looks a bit like this opportunity. So I think we've got to be respectful of everybody and try and work out how do we get to a resolution which is meaningful, which will last a long time in this community. I mean, the street names that are here now have been here for some of them before, well, 1838 perhaps the first street names. 1836 the Main North Road was named, Lower Main North Road, since changed to Churchill Road. But these are important decisions, and I think as we work through our Reconciliation Action Plan, we'll have more and more of these challenges. I just encourage people to try and anticipate those and be part of those in a way which respects that we may be leading this conversation, but we have to bring other people along with us. We'll be too far in front of people. They won't understand what we're trying to do. We want everyone to be part of this journey. So we just have to be mindful of that. Yes, it's a moment for us to really lay claim to marking our ancient history, but we also need to make sure that this is a joined up discussion. I look forward to how we have that with the community. We haven't asked the staff to start that consultation process yet, but perhaps when it comes back to us, they may have a few suggestions around how we actually do that consultation process in a way which explains the ancient and the more modern history to people who might want to give us some feedback about those names. But thank you for the discussion. Thank you, Councillor Barnett, for suggesting we have a discussion. It's very helpful. Any further speakers? If not, Councillor Harris, just to sum up.
Just a couple of quick brief things that I hope to be in the position next round not to use the word ancient history and modern history. I think it will be just the history of our area, and neither will have any overbearing on the other one, but we have to use it at this time to try and bring it forward. When we went through the discussion to build the new click and we sold the tram barns, some people made comment, particularly to me and others, about, well, we've had that bit of history there for ages and we've done nothing about repairing it and we left it nowhere. Well, to me, that wasn't an insult. It was something I took on board and accepted. And in this way, I think this is exactly the same thing. We could sit here and say, well, why didn't we do something when they first started talking and all that? We didn't. I'll speak for myself. I didn't. So here's the chance, I think, to prepare that. So I urge people to vote for this, and more so than just vote for it, see it as another important stepping stone to the meeting we started the other night with the Indigenous side of our city for our future.
Thank you. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. All righty. Happy to be part of those discussions, staff, if you need Mayor by your side. 13.2, periodic legislative delegations review. June 2018 recommendations on page 27 and 28. Any questions? Someone happy to move? Councillor Barnett, wish to speak to it?
Only that I think I did read it all.
Thank you.
And as I say with these things, I'm still amazed. We still have to have all this red tape and bureaucracy and stuff, but that's the way it is.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? If the Mayor wishes to speak to it? No. Further debate? Debate, all those in favour? Against? I thought you were going to sum up your own speech, Councillor.
No, just, you know, we've got a lot of reports to get through.
Item 13.3, the annual review of confidential items register. Questions? Someone happy to move it? Questions? Yep. No. No, the register is declared as you said. That's a good question. If you after a reason, the reasons are listed. If you'd like some clarification around one of the reasons, you can ask that.
doesn't help.
So,
Well, okay, I'll talk just broadly. One was around significant trees and the litigation that's going on, because there's a considerable amount of them.
the question is,
Sorry, they're not current.
you just stand, sorry.
So they're to be retained on the confidential register? Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just wondering why they're...
Briefly, there was a lot of legal action around those matters, and making that report public would expose us to the information in that report and expose other individuals in that report. There was a legal settlement around those issues, so it's confidential on the grounds of Section 92 or whatever it is. That's right, whatever the section number is. 90, yeah, on those grounds. I know the trees aren't there anymore. It was like it was legal.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just, yeah, it'd be interesting. I think it would be interesting for the public. And the other question I had was around a certain tram bar, but I think that was answered in a confidential email today.
Thank you. Any further questions? Not someone happy to move it? Deputy Mayor, anyone wish to speak to it? Seconder? Councillor Lee, wish to speak to it? Any further debate? All those in favour? Yes, carried unanimously. Item 13.4, fees and charges register. Any questions? Someone happy to move it? Councillor Harris, wish to speak to it? No, thank you. Web seconder? Councillor Lee, wish to speak to it? Just quickly from the chair, we have raised several times the issue of builders occupying footpaths and sticking bins on things and whatever. You'll see new charges and fees in the register for that on page 7, item 7.1, just in case you're interested. I know you all are interested. I know you've all read that section and you're all very comfortable, but I just thought I'd say, just in case I wanted a reminder. I know you've all seen it.
No, a certain resident would be pleased.
So it is in there for adoption tonight. Any further debate? Councillor DeBag.
So there's two things. So one on the builders things. Is there a bond system happening, or does this happen in the fees and registers? Because that had been discussed.
A bond for, say, damage to things?
Yes. For street part, yeah, pavements and that kind of thing.
CEO or director?
Through the chair, no, the bond system isn't through this process. Something we're investigating as a. Sorry, Nathan. That report is called that Victor's been working on. City Works Guide. So we're investigating as part of that process. But the bonds are not included as part of the stuff.
And it wouldn't be.
No.
Thanks, Councillor. Any further debate? Councillor Beck. Just continue your 5 minutes if you.
No, just one thing. Just regards to the community buses, we have two. I did have a brief phone call to the CEO today. Look, my concern is always around the best utilisation of community assets. A perception is that they may be both not used all the time. I don't know if that's an incorrect perception, but we have two buses, and I don't know if both of them are used 7.5 hours a day, 5 days a week.
I'll take the question, but it's not relevant to the fees and charges register, but I'll get an answer for you. Just be careful around relevance. Director?
Through the chair, look, I'd have to check the stats on the total utilisation. They are predominantly driven by volunteers, so it can depend on volunteer availability. I would say they are very busy, whether that's 7 hours a day, 5 days a week, both of them. There's certainly some wait time, whether or not that's related to demand, external bookings or driver availability. I'll have to look into and get back to you.
Thank you.
So it's just around use of community bus and charges. I think it was $50 plus the kilometres rate plus a deposit. And I'm just looking to see if perhaps our community groups can utilise the buses a bit better by leaving those fees or being available through grants.
Take that as a suggestion. Yeah. Any further debate? Councillor Harris?
Yes, I'm quite happy to go, but
you moved it, so
I move it.
Yeah, it's working to me to move it. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, I will use it in my closing bit.
Any further debate before Councillor Harris sums up and doesn't introduce any new information?
Okay, well then I better ask a question. Ask a question because I'm on attachment 311 and go down to 6 parks and reserves. And if you go down on that, go to 6.6, you've got Prospect Gardens and Nunu Wirra there, which are parks in our city, which is very, very great. Then you go up to 6.2 and I see Charles Kane Reserve. You must have forgot one of our parks that has an Indigenous mark.
No, yes. Huh?
Would we correct that in the paperwork, please?
Thank you.
And apart from that, I've moved it and thank you.
Is there any other debate? We'll take that as a question and the answer is yes, we will correct that. No other, do you wish to sum up? No, good, thank you very much. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Item 13.5, Big City Evaluation, recommendations on page 124, 125. Any questions? Not someone happy to question, Councillor Back?
Yeah, I was just questioning, there seemed to be a price differential between the original quote and what we're paying. Was in the order of 27,000 from the original? I may have read it incorrectly.
So just where are you?
Well, it just looks like there's a funding gap.
Page number?
I think, so it's page 131, gives the total cost to extend the fibre network on Prospect Road. So from my memory, the original figure was around about 70,000. So I'm just wondering, since the last time it came to us, it's gone up and how that cost is going to be.
Okay.
Right,
Thank you. Thank you. Through the chair, the original report that was withdrawn had two options. It had one which actually connected the Maris building and one which connected the whole precinct. And we've, since the discussion, Steve Maris has said he would commit an amount of money to this particular project. So I haven't put in the options there. I've actually just simply put in the one option which actually connects the whole precinct, builds a pit pipe network for about 120 metres and also has 3 crossovers. So that's the essentially $92,737, 93,000 figure. So that figure was in the last report.
Thank you. Councillor, another question?
Yeah, so I think in the report talks about Maris building Little City and Hub Adelaide, I think were the 3 places. In putting in the Sabin or the gig line, whatever you call it, if someone else sets up another business, are they along that line, are they able to plug into it at cost to them?
Yes, they are. They will. That will actually have most of those buildings within that precinct between essentially the council building here and the Maris building. There will be access via a pit and pipe network, all crossovers to buildings within that precinct. So really that means that that precinct there will be primed for office development. There may be a situation where somebody has to build another 4 or 5 metres and another pit, but that is actually small amounts of money. I think what this does is it establishes that whole precinct. It's almost like a planning boundary, but it's an infrastructure boundary that actually provides very high-speed data to that area.
Thank you.
One more quick question. As I'm talking to the businesses along the street, is that access only on the west side of the street, or could someone on the east side of the street also access it if they pay for the...
Yes, it's principally on the east side of the street. That will be where the majority of the access will be, because that's where the pit and pipe network will be, but with our building here, will actually meet the west side, and there'll be 3 crossovers which will service the west side.
Thank you. More questions? Somebody having to move? Question or move?
Both.
Okay. Yes, question first, and I'll take you as a mover.
So going ahead with this project is contingent on council committing money and potentially the Maris Group committing money and also the state government. Is there a budget that the current state government has for these types of projects? And the second question is, have we had conversations with them regarding the likelihood that we can tap into that budget, assuming there is one?
Okay, thank you. Through the Chair, there is a budget of about $7.8 million which the state government has put towards the Gig City program. That has principally gone to Whyalla and also to Mount Gambier to extend their networks. So we're only taking a very small percentage of their budget. So we'll be relying on about $43,000 additional dollars coming in to build our network, and also some good quotes. And we can get that money both from the Maris group, and the Minister's advisors have said there is spare capacity within the Gig City program. And I have actually fronted the Minister when I saw him at a function the other day and talked to him briefly about this, and he would entertain an amount of money, but we didn't have our figures, our commitment of how much money we would put on the table, so I wasn't actually able to say how much money we were going to put in. So I think the council actually committing to 50, which we have, puts our money on the table and then gives us a negotiating position with the Minister. There is flexibility. Whether we need to come back again, I'm not sure, but I think we should be able to do it for that amount of money. But it really depends on the state government people and Maris coming to the party.
Thank you. Happy to still move? Yes. Speak to it, move it.
Well, yeah. So if you look at the overall picture here, we've got a while ago we were fortunate enough and worked hard to get the NBN across our whole suburb, which is great from a residential point of view. And then the next stage of this was to get the superfast Wi-Fi network along the village heart, which was another great move in order to accommodate, when it works, members of the general public who want access to better quality Wi-Fi for leisure or ad hoc business and those types of things like that. So this is the next layer, and this is fairly and squarely aimed at the business and commercial sector along our area. And so I think, as is outlined in the report, this came to us a while ago. We said, hang on, there's some new information. Let's go out and see to make sure that this is the right decision to go with this model. We engaged some consultants who've done a thorough job and they're well credentialed. I've got no reason to believe that what they've put forward isn't an accurate picture. So I think we've done our due diligence on researching what option we should go with. So then the question is, should we do it? I think we definitely should do it, and I think it'll give us a significant advantage. Adelaide City Council have got this rolling out currently, and it's a major part of their marketing campaign for attracting businesses into the city centre, and the same thing will happen to us. We've come out and apparently ordained this area as a innovation precinct, and if people said, well, okay, tell us what that actually means. Previously we mightn't have had too much to back it up, but this is the kind of thing which we can fairly squarely say, well, this is the thing which is backing up the fact that this is an innovation precinct. So it's important infrastructure, and it's no different to the time and energy and money we've spent on Main North Road, Prospect Road and Churchill Road. It is a significant point of difference, and it's a long-term decision. The technology, whilst things move pretty quickly, it looks like it's going to carry us into the future. It's not going to be something which is going to be out of vogue and out of fashion anytime soon. So think overall we've taken a balanced approach to this decision. I think this is the right decision, and us moving forward with this tonight will give Chris, the director, the ability to go to Maris Group and to the government and say, well, we're committed. How about you guys be committed as well? So I'd encourage everyone to question this, but also ultimately support it.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Councillor Backer, wish to speak to it?
I think Councillor Larwood summed it up pretty well, but I think it's also a good news story, but I think we need to make a fact sheet, even just for elected members, so we can go sell it to people around the precinct, what we've potentially got and what they potentially have for their business and future development.
Further debate? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, and I think this is another very good example of how local government can be innovative and can work with other providers. Perhaps, it's these sorts of examples, I think when the current state government talks about rate capping, that they, just seem to have tunnel vision and not realise that we do all these other things as well, and that we can be innovative, that we can work with others, and we can, do these sort of sharing of projects. So,
Further debate? Just briefly from the chair, this is a very important marketing turning point for us. We were the first, and we still are the only council to have fibre in every street in our city, available to every premise in our city. I understand our take-up rates are as high as anywhere in the nation. They're over 90%. And that's incredibly good news for our city. But we are now able to take the next step and make sure that people have a choice of fibre to their premises, particularly business premises that have a high need for or desire to use broadband services. As I understand it, this will mean we have 3 fibre services available to these 4 premises and others in the future. That is an extraordinary marketing opportunity. There would be very few locations in the state that will be able to claim 3 fibre services and multiple service providers, because there are plenty on the NBN, but we'll be able to provide completely different networks to NBN as well. One of those is the Gig City deal, which provides very cost-effective access to the SaberNet network. So I think it puts us in an extraordinary position, and I look forward to seeing how the directors can lock in the balance of the funding to keep City of Prospect ahead of the game, and to have as many people attracted to set up their operations in the City of Prospect. And we're looking for the people who don't want to be in the CBD, that don't want to be troubled by trying to work out where they put their car or how they get in and out, that they want to be somewhere suburban where they can come and go with ease, where the lifestyle is fabulous, and that they can perhaps live nearby and walk to work. And that's exactly what we've seen in Little City with some of the small businesses in there. And I think this will be fabulous. So more power to your arm, staff and CEO. Thank you for bringing it to us. And I look forward to seeing this brought to a conclusion soon with negotiations with both Maris Group and government. I'm committed to any further debate. Councillor Larwood, do you need to sum up?
I will briefly. I agree with the input from around the table, and I think this will open us up to the next level of business. It's great to have a diversity of business in the City of Prospect. We've got quite a lot of micro businesses, and we've got a good startup community, and they're great from the overall perspective. I think it's the next level up of businesses, which is what actually generates economic benefit. It's the companies who have 10, 15, 20, 25 people working for them, who will start to grow the numbers of people engaging in what's happening, adding to the nighttime economy, those types of things like that. So I think this is the key to unlocking that level of the ability to attract those sorts of businesses, and I'm sure that that's going to be woven through our marketing and our economic development planning in the future as well.
Thank you. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 13.6, the Register of Interests, naming the officers of Council. Recommendations on page 232 to 233. Someone happy to move that way? Deputy Mayor, just speak to it.
Just a quick question. Are these made public?
The
The
names of the office positions.
yeah.
Well,
Well, the register. Let me say that again. The register of interest.
thank you, CEO.
Thank you. We don't publicise it, but of course people can come into the building to determine a register of interest. I mean, that's the whole purpose of having a register, so that there's some public scrutiny in terms of, particularly in relation to procurement and or assessment. So that's the whole purpose of having a register.
Just follow up. There's no requirement then to publish, just to have it.
My understanding the requirement is to have the register, have it available upon request of the counter.
Yeah. That's right.
Anything further?
No, thank you.
Seconder? Councillor Lee, wishes to speak to it. Any further debate? All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 13.7, community feedback regarding the draft annual business plan 2018-19, recommendations on page 235. Moves to move it. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, just very briefly, because I think it's worth speaking to. This is a really important part of our process of setting our budget and of understanding what our community wants and needs are, and of course trying to make sense of what people are telling us. I think this year, as in previous years, the staff have done a fantastic job in putting together the consultation and also the processes. It's sad that we didn't have the school kids again. I quite liked that session last year and in previous years, and maybe next year we'll be back. But just to really acknowledge the staff's work. And I think that we've made some changes to our business plan as a result of this direct community consultation. And so for anyone who ever wonders about whether council listen to community, this is a really good example to show that absolutely, yes, we do. So commend the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Barnett, you wishing to second? Is that right?
Yes, and I concur with Deputy Mayor's comments, and I think we agreed at a workshop, I believe, that we had on this, that it was very important for us. We do and take this seriously, but it's important that people recognise, and I've always said over a number of years, that we get their consultation in, but it's a two-way process, about letting them know, well, hey, yes, we have changed this, we have changed the terrific budget. We have looking at reviewing and putting in only 3 out of 4 for our council magazine. We have listened to you, and I think we were quite a bit surprised about the youth one, and so we're going back to our staff there and saying, well, hey, how's this going to shape what we do for youth in our city? Also, some of the feedback, I know the Mayor and I and the CEO have been gathering just a bit of research and whatever about older women and their housing needs in the city, So somewhere, I don't know where, but I guess in perhaps the Mayor's remarks in the lead up to the annual budget and in the media release about it, that we could emphasise that, yes, hey, we've seen it, we've heard it, and we've listened and we've done something.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Deputy Mayor Groot, wish to sum up? That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Item 13.8, the adoption of the annual business plan 2018-19 and declaration. Recommendation on page 336 to 338 to 40. I'll just check any last minute changes.
2 minor.
If you could stand, just inform us what they are.
Through the chair, 2 minor changes. Part 1 is to subject to minor administration edits, so that enable us to fix up some typo or some sentences in the annual business plan. And
if there are any.
Yeah. And part 4, we'd like to adopt the latest valuation released yesterday to a new value that's changed from what you have on the agenda, with an additional $100 income.
Thank you, Director. And we are only just, 20 million shy of cracking the $6 billion mark, so hopefully next year. Any questions about what's before you? No, so I'm happy to move that way.
Morning, me.
Who should speak to it?
I'm just to carry on from other councillors. Considering the amount of work we're doing in the city, I think with the CLIP project and still trying to keep on top of our footpaths, park maintenance, economic development, our events, we're still providing events. So I think we're doing a great amount of things, and I think one of the comments from one of the young person survey was that, you know, if we do have all these things, we do have to pay for them, but I think we've done it in a very efficient and economical way, and I think all the way along the budget process we've been really pushing our pennies, so congratulations to all those involved to getting to this point.
You have a second. If you should speak to it.
Just very briefly, budgets are always an exciting time for council. This is the 8th one I've been involved with. They're always complex, they're always interesting, there's always lots of debate, and I think, as Councillor De Backer said, we're actually doing a lot for what we're getting in rates. We had very few levers in council. Rates is one of the very few ones. I think, like everyone around the table, it would have been great to have a number a bit lower than 3.3. You know, I'm not going to speak for everyone, but certainly for myself, that would have been ideal. But we look at what we're doing in the city prospect, and I think that reflects really positively in terms of the rate increase we do have. I just want to comment also on the increase in the rate of the dollar. So it has been going down over the last few years. It's going up by 0.9%, which is a bit of a shame because I think we've been on a really good trajectory, but it's only 0.9. I think it's quite a low increase in the rate of the dollar. So I'm quite comfortable with that. I've never voted against the budget. I certainly won't be voting against it this time. I'll be voting for it. I think it is responsible, and I think this time next year we'll be very close to having a brand new facility which is going to absolutely transform the way we do business here. So I'm very excited about it. Also, just want to say thank you to the staff. There's an amazing amount of work. It's 6 months worth of work really into the budget. So thank you to Jenny and Chris and teams for your work as well.
Thank you. Any further debate?
It's moved and seconded, yes.
Yes, Councillor Barney.
Yes, so I concur with the speakers, and I think anybody who's, if you know, we could get enthused members of the community to, I know the Prospect Residents Association has good attenders and that, and to actually listen to all the stuff that we've actually not done that we would have, you know, liked to have done, but realised we can't do it. We've had to pull the, you know, as they figuratively say, the notch on the belt, and recognising that in concurrence with what our independent audit committee advises to do, and our staff, and that we have kept within those 3 major economic indicator factors of the ratios that are there. So it's been quite a long, hard road, and I just think we should thank everybody here for actually, we've tried to do our best. We've got a heavy infrastructure program going. And one of the other things that I would like to check is that in our notice that goes out to ratepayers, will there be concise information informing ratepayers of the state and federal costs and collecting, that we collect their revenue, the cost shifting as it's called, that are passed on to us as a local government? Because I am aware that not many ratepayers are really aware of these state government costs that we, as local government, are actually forced, legislated, to collect or to pass on through their council rates. I think it's you know, time that we were quite upfront about this. I think we have said before about the natural resources management levy or something like that, you know, but there's quite a whole lot of dot points that, I talk to people and they say, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that. Well, hey, most of that's why a lot of your rates actually are what they are. And we could provide, have less rate in the dollar to you if we weren't continually slugged by the state and federal governments. And so trying to explain to people about cost shifting, it occurs when the state governments require councils to collect revenue or fund its policies. For example, the solid waste levy tax on landfill makes council rates more expensive. In South Australia since 2001, that's increased by nearly 1,450%. All right. So about $100 million collected over the last 10 years remains unspent in the state government fund. Now, I believe that's still, I checked on the local government for the, some of the facts and stats, and I believe that is still a fact. The Natural Resources Management Levy, what do we see of that here in Prospect, I might well ask. Levy, $500,000 of state tax still owed to councils. The rubble royalties, council, I don't know if that applies maybe more to country councils and their roads. Cost increases about $1,000 per kilometre of road constructed, all passed on to us, the ratepayers. We are getting a double whammy. We pay as ratepayers and we pay as taxpayers. I asked, are ratepayers aware that they're subsidising the cost of their neighbours' planning and building application by around 70 to 80%. Services provided under the Development Act is one example of the fees not coming close to covering costs. I believe that's the same with us here at Prospect. So basically, councils rely on rates to cover the difference between what the state and the federals have shifted onto us and to our ratepayers. And so many of the fees and charges that council can raise are actually set in regulations, like the dog regulations and costs. We can't alter them in case it might actually cost us more to do that. Some are set at cost recovery and others aren't. Some are indexed annually and others are not. So, and there are some activities for which councils are not permitted to charge anything. All right, so I think it's high time that there was a review about all this. So I look forward to that day coming pretty soon.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett. Any further speakers? Harris.
Okay. I want to thank all the staff for all the hard work they put in to get this together. I have to change my speech because I was ready for another one. But I looked at a couple of things at 3.5 to 3.3, and when people do ask you these questions, it's always a hard thing to go through without this, as Councillor Barnett pointed out, the sheer fact of our commercial side as far as our residential side, and we're one of the main ones, because I think we walked out of here last week or the week before, and the first person that hit me, that by the time I got to their house, which happens to be my house, was, I don't own it, happens to be my house, was, hell, yours has gone up 3.5, the biggest in the state. And that was going through my own house. I didn't even have to go to my neighbours, and went through there. But I was a bit concerned that, one, when we knocked off the street party, I wasn't concerned about that because I thought it was time that we had to save some money with the new project. But I was a bit reluctant on the putting the money apart from a car park, because I think that was one of the concerns that quite a few of us had before we started the CLIC project, was about people parking. So perhaps we could have given that back to the residents, but if we'd done that, which I would have supported, we'd done that in some way further down the track, we'd have to find where cars in that park. So it's just when everything happens at the once. If we had to perhaps put the library where it should have been, over on Main North Road, it could have been a great cheaper thing. We might not have had to sell off some of our properties, but unlike last year where I did vote against it, and I think in 24 years I have always voted for it. I voted against it because of the money we putting towards China and now charging us for our paper. But I'm going to support this, explain to people why it is high, and to explain what you're going to get the end result. So I'm going to endorse it. Thank you.
Just from the chair, those comments are all great, and I echo the thanks to you, CEO, and to the balance of the staff. I'm happy to say this is quite a remarkable budget. We don't build these sort of buildings very often. It's once every 50 years. If you ever think about how much this council has built, we're sitting in the place that was one of its biggest investments, and it was quite a while ago. It was more than 50 years. 40 years ago, we did some work to convert an old school into a library, and in 88 we built a gallery and we built an extension after that. But they were quite modest projects. We built the offices next door about 14 years ago, but it was a rebuild of some material that was already there. We haven't done a project like this, you could say, since this town hall was built. So for us it's probably a once in a 100-year project. To be able to do a project of that scale and keep our rates anywhere near the local government price index, which is currently running, as I understand it, at about 2.9, 2.75%, I think is remarkable. And the only reason to be able to do that is that this council, elected members and the staff have worked so hard over the previous years to get us into a very solid position where we can actually have a really good debate about what we can forego going forward, what we need to make sure we put some money into going forward so we don't lose track of those master plans, and to build on the strength that we've got to be able to borrow money because our borrowings aren't already overrun. So structurally, we're in a good position to keep that investment next door being paid for at a very reasonable rate. You think about it, that building will last for 50 years and it won't need to be being paid for 50 years. We'll pay it off within 15 as a loan, I think we're contemplating. So I think, again, that's pretty good work. And I just want to echo some of the comments that Councillor Barnett has made. I mean, yes, I thank the people who have given us feedback. I really do, really value that. It shows that we listen and we react, we change things in response. I think that's really important. But how do you explain to them that we now have the lowest federal grants we've had in years? There was a grants freeze only a couple of years ago, which meant we had no more money for 3 years. So that money's not come back. Our state grants are the lowest in the country. No one gets a lower grant from the state government per capita than us. The state government has been pulling out of library funding for years. They now only fund 10% of the library services. Previously it was a shared 50-50 role. We have taxes that we pay the state government we collect, such as the Natural Resources Management Levy. We have to pay, our people have to pay 7.63% increase on it, 3 times the rate of inflation. They're slugging us 15% increase on the waste levy, which is, what's that? That's 6 times the inflation rate on the waste levy. The rubber royalties doesn't affect us, and the transfer of community housing doesn't affect us, but both of those affect other councils in ways which are completely unjustified, and the money goes straight to state government objectives. If it doesn't go to them, it goes to their objectives. And I just think it's really disappointing the way that that's not seen, or very difficult to explain to local people. I do hope that one day we can make that clearer. I certainly tried to on radio on Monday morning on ABC, and again on Radio Italiano at lunchtime. But they're difficult messages to get across. So we do what we can. I think we do a pretty good job with the resources that we're given and our heavy dependence upon rates. And it just again underscores the importance of us getting our main road strategy right to make sure that we're generating much more from our main roads. My only disappointment, and I drive the team nuts about this, is that we haven't had to get main North Road to really lift yet. That is the screaming out for more of something there, because some of the things up there pay minimum rates or very low rates, and I think that's opportunity writ large for us to keep transforming our financial structure in years to come by encouraging people to invest on that main North Road. And our role in upgrading public realms will be important to that. So I look forward to what we do this year, this budget. I think it's going to be a really important budget. And I look forward to the discussions next budget year when we know more about the final costs of next door, and we finally get on with the last stage of Prospect Road, and we're really starting to get our teeth into what we mean by investing in Main North Road. So there's certainly challenges ahead, but I commend everybody's effort to arrive at this budget given the circumstances that we're faced with. So thank you, and I'll certainly be voting for it. Are there any other debate tonight? Councillor DeBacker, do you wish to sum up it all?
I think everyone's made a great contribution, and I think we're all agreed and that we've done the best we can. Not everyone's going to agree with every decision, but I think collectively we've done a good job for our community.
Thank you. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against? This is carried unanimously. Thank you. Well done, Chief. Item 13.9, Chief Executive Officer Statement on Financial Sustainability, the Annual Business Plan 2018-19, recommendation page 415. I'm happy to move this. Councillor DeBacker, you should speak to it.
Yes, just briefly. It sort of goes back to what I was talking about regarding the Audit Committee. So on page 419, there's a lovely summary of the Audit Committee's commentary. And I'm just going to read them aloud because this is the sort of double-edged sword of the rates that we've just passed. So we did have discussions of our rates actually being higher, but we got it down. But the concern is always, for me, service levels. So in reducing our rates, are we reducing our service levels? So instead of, checking a park every week, are we checking it every second week? And so if we read them out, the parameters of potential rate capping are still unknown. So this is regards the annual business plan and may cause pressure on long-term sustainability. So don't be surprised if in quarters to come we're going to get budget variations because we're actually not meeting the service levels that we need to hit. That the recurrent operating budget is not indexed for 2018-19, which could cause pressure on sustaining existing service levels. This is what I was talking about. The volatility of waste and recycling market represents an ongoing material risk to Council's budget. And finally, that the Council be aware that the service level assumptions for the new Civic Centre have not been fully defined and will need to be taken into account for the 2019-2020 budget. So, though we've just passed a rate of 3.3, obviously varied depending on what the type of rate is, I think just to be wary that some of this might come back to us in service levels that are not being met to the expectations of our community. So I think it was good that the CEO has highlighted this. So though we've done well, I think we still have to brace ourselves for what might come in the future. I don't know if anyone's got a quote to clean all the glass windows in the new Click building yet, but I imagine it won't be cheap. So there's all those kind of things to look forward to. I look forward to the challenge, or the next council will look forward to that challenge.
Thank you. Do I have a second it? Deputy Mayor, you should speak to it. Any further debate? I just from the chair point out on page 418, the long-term financial plan dashboard. Despite the many challenges that we've spoken about, I don't recall it looking so green. That's what I mentioned before. I think structurally we're in a really good place. That's taken years of work. It hasn't happened overnight. So again, I commend the staff in terms of helping us get to that point. The elected members too, and not spending what we don't have. And one would look at that and think we're pretty sustainable, and why would you bother trying to interfere with the way we do things? But that might just be my opinion, and others clearly think they know how to tell us to suck eggs, and I'll leave it to them to make that judgment, I suppose. Looks right to me. Any further debate? That being the case, Councillor DeBacker, you wish to sum up our speeches?
I think it's great that those issues have been highlighted, and I think the summing up on page 420 of the debt financing, the analogy that Council's equity at 30th of June 2019. This is equivalent to having an approximate $60,000 mortgage on a $500,000 house. I think that's a really good communication tool.
That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. 13.10, discretionary rate rebate, general rates 2018-19, the recommendation on page 422. No surprises in here. So I'm happy to move it. Deputy Mayor, speak to it.
I do, actually, because a couple of comments, a couple of questions. So I think every year I ask the same question. I'm going to ask it again this year. How do we promote the fact that there are rebates available through our community services and other organisations? My second question relates to the rebate provided to the Prospect RSL. Can someone just tell me what property that we're rebating that rate on?
Director.
First question, we do have that rebate through our NMC plan towards the rating policy. That's part of Council's rating policy. In terms of that particular property, can I just check? I have to take a notice.
Let me ask it differently. Are we rebating property that we own?
No, through the chair, no. These are properties. These are the properties owned by the 4 listed above, and they are based on the use, facilities, and services that they provide. Then we decide whether the rebate is 75% or 100%.
So I'm certainly not an expert in this, but the only property owner that RSL have is the one that we own. So I'm just trying to understand how we're rebating a property that we own that they lease from us, unless in the lease agreement we're charging them rates.
Have to take that on notice. Sorry.
I think that'll come out via a memo.
That's right. Yeah. Councillor,
this is a repeat of what we've done in years past. So.
I've asked in years past as well.
Sure, there was a great answer from your last question in years past. I do appreciate the question.
So I guess my only comment is that we may not need to provide a rate rebate to the Prospect RSL if it is indeed the property that we own, if we're not charging them rates as part of their lease agreement. So Chris looks excited, so maybe someone else.
If I can, I believe it's because they're a tenant within our property, it comes rateable at tenancy point. So the rebates would versus the rateability of that. So because they're a tenant and they're not council, even though we own it, they're a tenant, so because we rate on tenancies, the rate that the property becomes rateable at that point in time, and the rebate versus that. Right, okay.
So if I could ask another question then, which Chris may or may not better answer, Ginny. Do we have other properties then where we have tenants where we're charging rates who don't have a rate rebate?
Director General, there are a number of the footy clubs, cricket clubs and the like. How do we differentiate between all of those and this? There must be some reason.
Potentially have, but they will need to apply, number one. And the second thing, it has to be guided by Section 166, whether what is the nature of the use of that facility. So there's quite strict rules in terms of how do we provide the rebate. So there may be.
So my understanding is sections 160 to 65 are prescribed. 166 is whatever we decide. Could I just maybe foreshadow, maybe not a motion, but maybe it'd be good for us to have a conversation about this at a workshop at some point, because I think there's a whole lot of inequity in these 4. I'm not debating that these 4 aren't worthy of getting a rebate, but I just think there's probably a whole lot of others that might need it and aren't getting it or might be aware of it. I think it'd be useful perhaps to have a conversation about it at a workshop at some point, or at least the future council might choose to do that, just to get some clarity about who we think under Section 166 should be eligible for rebate, and if there are others in Sections 160, 165 that should get them that aren't. So could I just maybe seek an indication about whether that should be a formal motion, whether administration's happy to take that on board?
CEO? Noted. Thank you. As mover, do we have a second? Councillor Tobacco, do you wish to speak to it? Any further debate? All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. It was a 4, wasn't it?
Just a bit slow, but yeah.
1311, discretionary rate rebate Village Heart Marketing Fund 2018-19. Again, same as last year. I'm happy to move it. Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak to it? No. Do you second it? Councillor Barnett, do you wish to speak to it?
No, I think it's surprisingly for these sorts of things at this time when we first applied it now that it seems to be actually working quite well.
Fabulous initiative, can I say, Director?
I think it was somebody else's idea, Mayor. We've done a good job in implementing it.
Any further debate? Indeed. No? All those in favour? Against is carried unanimously. It was a 4, wasn't it? Yeah. 1312, the periodic review of the credit card policy. I declared I had an interest in this item, so I'll now vacate the chair and invite Deputy Mayor to come forward. I'll be out in the cold, getting some fresh air.
Okay, 13.12, periodic review of credit card policy. Recommendations on page 430. Someone to move it, please. Oh, sorry, there is an amendment. We'll just get it. Yeah, you go.
Through the chair, there's a slight amendment. So as part of the last sentence, credit card policy for council officers, we just like to seek to delete the word council officers, credit card policy.
Okay. So that makes it clear that it applies to anyone who holds a credit card within council. Is that correct?
Through the chair, staff.
Staff.
Yeah.
So do I have someone who's happy to move it as amended? Just speak to it.
No, thank you.
Someone to second? Thank you, Councillor Lee. Just speak to it. Any other debate? All those in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Oh, easy.
Lots of articles about wasting our new messenger. What a great paper. Not talking about rubbish. Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor, item 13.3, the East Waste Draft Annual Plan recommendation on page 441. Someone happy to move that way?
Moved.
Yeah, Councillor Lowe, were you looking just in case there was an opportunity there for you?
Councillor Lowe.
I'd be the wind, Matthew Wingson, happy to second it.
Well, crikey, I haven't even asked you if you wish to speak, Deputy Mayor.
Oh, I think Councillor Larwood might speak on behalf of the council.
Councillor Larwood, you seconded.
Please.
To speak to it.
I'd like to thank the movement for their commentary and succinct summary, and I support and endorse everything that he said.
Any further debate? Councillor De Backer. Yep.
On attachment 7, doesn't have our page number on it, unfortunately, on my copy. It has the Table 2 East Waste Business Plan 2015 to 2024 Action Summary. It doesn't have a key, so am I to assume the red crosses are things that haven't happened, or are they new things that have been introduced? I was just trying to read what it actually means.
There's colours on the chart. You're right. There's no legend.
Key to indicate what it means.
No legend there. Ask the CEO, who's our board member, if she can decipher that. I didn't have that question, and I thought green meant good and red meant something else, but I was pretty kind of find the answer to that good question. CEO, can you enlighten us?
Thank you for the question, and I will need to seek clarification from the CEO of East Waste in relation to the colours. In terms of identification of actions, the table is trying to clearly identify that there are actions coming in the various years. But in terms of the colours, I agree with you. The table should have had a colour code associated with it, and I apologise that that hasn't been clarified.
It's not your report, CEO, but it's in our report.
That's right.
Hence the question. Councillor De Backer.
And just one more concern, just on that table, on action 5, it says East Waste to establish operations KPI as per table 3, which is on the next page. I'm just wondering if picking up waste after 7 o'clock is included in that KPI?
Thank you very much for the question. This is an ongoing debate I have with the organisation, and I am assured almost weekly that waste is collected after 7 a.m. There have been a number of occasions where that hasn't occurred, one being Kintore Avenue, while the work of resurfacing Kintore has occurred, and the residents were advised about that. When they started our contractual service, I think the drivers were very enthusiastic and were getting out here very early, and we tried to resolve that through my suggestions to the organisation that actually the drivers start later because clearly they're getting here early. So there's been a realignment of the start time for the staff so that in actual fact they are arriving here at 7. There is one loop that they tend to do up near the school which has occurred before 7 a.m. in order for them to get their trucks into position to commence the collection. So it has meant that the truck has been in the street prior to 7 a.m. That has caused a bit of confusion as well. But we are working with them to ensure that that service standard is retained.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Harris.
I am going on holiday, so I won't be confused. Late July, early August. And I'm glad you asked that question because to me that seems to be the only problem because they seem to be doing a good job on our streets. It'd be good if we could get the hard waste one painted so it represents us as well, like the other trucks are. Apart from that, I endorse it and thank you for keeping them out of my street before 7, CEO, if you do that.
Thank you. Just from the Chair, I want to clarify that there is a covering letter to this report which indicates that there's a couple of items it's on attachment 2, page 444, I presume. It's not page number. 445. There's a couple of items there in the General Manager's covering letter from East Waste that suggests that the board might like to look at a couple of things. One of those is that the organics bin be picked up the same week as the recycling bin, and I've made it pretty clear to the CEO that I think that's a pretty silly idea because that would mean 3 bins out in the street, and the CEO's assured me that that hasn't come up to board, and that if it did, it won't last very long. So please don't read anything into those 2 suggestions. They are not part of the annual business plan, but note that we've asked for people to be innovative, and I think what the CEO is trying to indicate to us here, the CEO of East Waste, is that he wants to discuss things that are innovative throughout the year. So take it that there will be, but I don't think it'll be that one. The next item, the biobag distribution, might be reviewed to see if it can be made more effective. I'm open-minded about having a review, but it's a very important part of our service, so I wouldn't want it to be compromised in any way. And I certainly, pass it on to the CEO, just my thoughts. If you've got any of your own thoughts, then pass them on after the meeting. If you've got other innovative ideas, again, maybe send the CEO an email with that. But I just want to make it really clear that they're not part of the business plan. They're just suggestions in a letter. Any further debate on this one? No, Councillor Deputy Mayor, Group, do you wish to sum up and perhaps reinforce what you said in your opening speech that so impressed Councillor Larwood?
Sit down. Look, I just want to pick up a point that you made, Mayor, around the compostable bags, because I think this is a bit of a theme that we're seeing also with our Frosty magazine about how do we distribute things to our city that makes sense. And I think, some innovative ideas around that would be really good. I mean, informally, feedback to me has been some people use those bags really well, and they go to their neighbours when they run out, and others kind of deposit them straight away into a bin, probably the red lid one, not the green one, when they get them. So I think how do we, it's a bit of a common theme around some of the things we're doing around how do we make sure we're getting out to people what they need when they need it, and avoiding wastage. And taken by the $50,000 saving that's suggested in the letter as well. The only other question I had is that they did want feedback by 31st of May. It will be on that date. I presume, just as a comment, that that's not an issue, because of course I can't ask questions and say out. So I'm just saying that. Yes, I'm sure that everyone will eagerly support this motion, just as our drivers eagerly support levy pickups.
Thank you. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. 13.14, Eastern Health Authority Draft Annual Business Plan, 1819. Recommendations on page 467 and 468.
Yes.
Move the way, Councillor Barnett.
Yes, as one of your representatives, along with Tallis, on the Eastern Health Authority Board. So the Eastern Health Authority Board have completed their draft annual business plan, including budget for the 2018-19 financial year, and under its charter prior to the Board of EHA endorsing this annual business plan, required to seek review and comment from all constituent councils at attachments 1 to 21. So the review's been undertaken by key staff, and generally it's recognised that this draft EHA annual business plan is generally business as usual, a continuation and continuous improvement of their work, which you will see on page 471, the following priorities that have been set out. So the annual business plan, after to the constituent councils, will then be considered for adoption at the EHA board to be coming up fairly soon. So I commend the draft annual plan and the budget to you.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Councillor Harris, wish to speak to it?
No, thank you.
Well said.
Councillor Barnett. Any further debate? I just indicate from the chair that I have discussed with the CEO that at some point we need to validate that this service is providing us value for money, and that it makes more sense to outsource this than onboard it. And I don't think we've had that review before us for quite a while, and it's just a healthy thing to do every now and again. It doesn't need to be part of this motion, but at some point I think the CEO should encourage us to initiate some process and do that, and do it in a way which allows the authority to demonstrate their value to us, but also for us to be able to price up an alternative model so that we've got some ability to compare it. It's probably the thing you should do at the most every 10 years, and it's probably around about that time. So just to flag to you that despite us probably endorsing this, and I'm happy to do so if I need to tonight, that it is an outsourced service that we need to do. Any further debate? No, that being the case, Councillor Barnett, wish to sum up?
No.
There's debate. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 13.15, below the line priorities for endorsement for the Community Hub Library and Innovation Centre District. Recommendations on page 527. Any questions? Deputy Mayor's happy to move it. Wish to speak to it?
Just wanted to say, look, I think all of the things below the line are quite important. I suspect we're not going to have the funds to do all of them. I don't necessarily agree with the priority order exactly as presented, but it becomes a bit academic because I presume that funds will somewhat lead us to some decisions about what we do and what we can't do. So if we don't have enough money to do the high priority item, I presume we'll go down this until we can find a match between the money available and the item we want. So I'm not going to debate the order of them, but I think there are some, I think particularly reform are really important and absolutely success as part of the project. So hopefully we get great savings, good project management, and we can realise some of these below the line items.
Thank you. Do you have a second? Councillor De Backer, do you wish to speak to it? Further debate? That concludes debate. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. That's good guidance for the CEO to work with. A lot of work went into that. Item 14, we have the protocol, which means I'll do a call over, and if there are none withdrawn, we'll move all these items on block. Does anybody wish to withdraw item 15.1, the appointment of the acting Chief Executive Officer? No. Item 15.2, the Prospect Business Leaders Group re-establishment. Councillor De Backer. Item 15.3, project update, Community Hub Library and Innovation Centre. Anybody wish to withdraw that? Let's take then someone to move 15.1 and 15.3. Councillor Lee, and no speaking to it, this one, because it's all motion. Second, Councillor Barnett. No debate. All those in favour? Against? And carried. Both of those. Thank you. Councillor De Backer, item 15.2, just a brief reason why you withdrew it, and do you wish to move?
Yeah, I just want to clarify, just to differentiate it between the Network Prospect brand and program that we've got, and to clarify some of the values, I guess, to the community.
So that's
I'll move it. And then
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate that.
So as you know, the Network Prospect brand has been quite successful, and I briefly asked the director prior to the meeting, but I'll ask this Prospect Business Leaders Group, how it differs from Network Prospect, because I know if on page 538 it says proposed members of the PBL group will seek, I'm assuming it's typo, to include business representatives of home-based businesses, health and wellbeing. My understanding was that we weren't getting some of those people in the Network Prospect brand. So maybe, can I ask a question?
Yes. So just clarify your question.
Yeah, so basically the Network Prospect brand is about connecting and working with businesses within Prospect. And so we've got this Prospect Leaders Group, and I'm just trying to understand how that differs from the Network Prospect activities.
Thank you, Director.
Okay, thank you through the Chair. The Network Prospect Group has been very effective, mainly in training home-based businesses, small businesses, and being a touch point for people once they set up a business in Prospect. So it's been very good from that perspective, but it's more a group that we're giving information to rather than receiving information from. So I think the Prospect Business Leaders Group will seek to engage with the higher order businesses in Prospect, the people who are employing more people, the people who are driving our economy, like the Maris Group, etc. So we'll be seeking to engage with those people, listening to them about what they think the local economy needs, and also listening to them particularly in the rewriting of our economic strategy, because our economic strategies and our digital economy strategies are coming to an end, the 2014-2018. We need to really engage with the business groups on a more formal basis. The Prospect Business Leaders Group re-establishment will help us do that, and also be a group which we could engage with a little bit more formally in the annual business plan as well. So I think one's just more us giving information through Network Prospect. Network Prospect also is more than just the workshops. It also has a great website with all of our businesses involved, but it is more something that we do for business. I think it's Prospect Business Leaders Group will be more of a two-way conversation between council and the business community.
Thank you. That was a very long answer to the question, but Councillor De Backer, in moving it, do you think
look, I mean, generally I'm supportive, but I think the report probably doesn't reflect that. You do have listed here home-based businesses and more than 4 people. So I think probably in essence what you're trying to say is a targeted approach. So certainly if there's value in that, and I'm sure there would be for the Prospect community, because it does take time and effort to get three important people in the same space talking to each other, and that's really important. And that perhaps doesn't happen in a network prospect environment. So look, I'm supportive of this, but I think it could be maybe just communicated again, just in an email, maybe to elected members sometimes some of the value and how we can also assist with that process.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Barnett?
Yes. Yeah, I think it's quite important that at this stage, and I think it's quite an important point that the director made about having the two-way communication, and also particularly for looking, say, at annual business plan, you know, some of that aspect of it. Yeah, and I appreciate it. It's just at a different hierarchical level than the sort of networking, you know, which goes out to a whole lot of different sorts and types of businesses, you know, as well. So I support it.
Any further debate? Councillor De Bach, wish to sum up? That concludes debate. All those in favour? Against? Is carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, next item is the council diary, and you can see the 4 events on there, a couple in the town hall, where we are right now, and a couple up the street at Prospect Oval. The Roosters are still sitting top of the ladder, which is an extraordinary turnaround from last year, and let's hope they can take it all the way. And hands up for the Roosters. Is that where you're at, Councillor Barnett?
Well, I can put my hands up for the Roosters, and along with a few other, a couple of other football clubs. But no, I was going to just see, just a reminder and add, and was probably sent about the Prospect Local Environment Group's Ditch the Plastic in Prospect free community event, 15th of July, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. at the Prospect RSL Hall.
July?
Yes, so there'll be, it was in Prospect Council magazine, about 3 pages in, a very good promotion in there, so you can check that. But it'll be a very practical example. We've got stalls that will have information there that will have some very practical ways of how, you know, we can start removing some plastics, especially single-use plastic, from our lives.
Councillor Stanley?
I noted that the dog microchipping is happening on Thursday at the Trambarn. There was a council event. My dog will be going along to be chipped.
Excellent. I hope you go with not to be chipped, but
They put them all in the
Make tiny little microchips.
Councillors, I know it's late, but
What's that in your ear?
General business, I feel the need to move on and push through here. General business, is there any general business of an urgent nature? No, good. Confidential items, there are nil. Being closed.